So the organ Save the Kids as an organization, you can read it on our website, but started out in 2009. Um, it sparked out of a conversation with some young people who were uh, in a juvenile detention facility, um, and talking about like what needs to happen to prevent that, right? Because we firmly believe there should be no youth in prison. Um, I actually believe there should be no one in prison. We're in uh, believe in transformative justice, alternatives to incarceration. So that's what the org has been working on um, since the beginning. And our work has evolved over the years. So now we're a national organization with board members in various regions. Um, but we all work collectively and we've narrowed it down. We have three main programs right now, which is lowrider studies. Um, as many of y'all know, uh, lowrider is one of the most criminalized Latinx youth cultures. We also have our transformative justice program. Transformative Justice Conference is coming up in February, which is, just looking at alternatives to the current quote unquote justice system and alternatives to incarceration. And then the hip hop studies program, which is what we're doing here. And hip hop is most, as you all know, one of the most criminalized Black youth cultures and just youth cultures in general. But we're looking at obviously ways that actually these cultures impact youth and all of us in positive ways and can serve as avenues for alternatives to incarceration. So, in a nutshell, that sort of Save the Kids. And again, we have tons of information and resources on the website if you're interested in learning more about any of these topics. And today, we get to explore hip hop studies more in depth altogether. This year's the theme of this year, we're looking at power, privilege, and positionality, failures and triumphs in hip hop culture in the 2020s. Uh, Tasha, do you want to just introduce yourself as an individual and then I can do the same?
Well, it's as an individual.
Like who you are, you know what I
No, I'm
mean?
just
We
kidding. I'm
haven't
just
said
giving
who
you a
we
hard
are.
time. I'm like, that's so complicated. Um,
Not,
hey,
not
but
like your entire persona, but you know what I mean.
I, let me tell you. But before we do that, I think one of the things I want to say about this organization, I teach alongside Anthony, who's on mute. He's in a departmental meeting with my department, our department, criminal justice program down at Salt Lake Community College. And it was very, very nice for me moving to Utah and being able to find someone else in hip hop in this random state doing the work, working with the youth. So I'm just honored to be with some of these people today, with you all who are, so most of you are my like closest buddy friends. So I'm very excited to see your faces. But also Jason is actually not here right now, but is another co-chair. So I want to start with him, Tony, if you don't mind, um, because he's dope. He will be here later once he's done teaching his classes, but I have his bio, and I've actually never read his bio, and it's so formal because I just know him as a breaker. So I'm like, oh, now we're all academic and stuff. All right, so he's sorry, y'all. I just got off on tangents. So PhD Dr. Jason. This is a recent thing. I'm very, very happy to have breakers starting to get their doctorates. Can be. Practitioner of several street and hip hop dance forms, which he teaches, choreographs, and performs. He's a member of Battle Cats, West Coast Rockers. Hey, just fun fact, West Coast Rockers in California were my introduction to breaking in the culture. So they were the crew that I was exposed to, which may or may not have been a good thing because they were one of the best. And then I was like, wow, everyone's not like this in the world. They were amazing, amazing group of people, amazing crew. And he's part of the Get Down Gang from Pennsylvania. He's also the artistic director of Mixtape, a hip hop dance theater collective serving the Twin Cities hip hop dance scene by breaking down barriers to resources and helping to cultivate an artistic ecosystem. Ooh, that's nice. Jay Sun is a former disciplinary head of the hip hop dance track at the University of Minnesota and a current instructor of Slippery Rock University. His scholarship includes Broken Promises, developing a practice of listening and turning to feminist and breaking. Great books, y'all. If you can get his books, I got them and then LAX lost them in my luggage. So I got to buy them again. And Hip Hop Dance and Circulation of Breaking Footage, but really great text. So I just wanted to kind of honor his space here before we start. My name is Tasha Iglesias. I earned a doctorate in educational leadership. I have a master's in sociology and a bachelor's in liberal studies. This will make sense as to why I'm so random. I teach at Utah State University now, Salt Lake Community College in Westminster in Utah. I teach across disciplines, criminal justice, sociology, gender studies, leadership programs. So I'm just all over the place, which I love. Most of my research, y'all, and I'm trying to get this like fine-tuned so I have an elevator speech, but I mostly study the culture and its impact and how it's used to empower people. And right now, you're probably like, where did you go, Tasha? Where did you go? I am doing a systematic review of literature published on hip hop since the beginning. So I have 46,000 records to go through. And it's a lot, but I really feel I'm like, if I'm going to be a scholar of hip hop, I should probably read and really understand how our culture came to be, how hip that's my dryer and it's giving me anxiety. And it just basically, I'm just a very big fan of the culture. I love it. I love the people probably the most. So I'm just grateful to be here. I volunteer with them to run this conference, and it's free and accessible and great. And it's just great to be surrounded by y'all. So welcome, welcome. Tony, oh shoot, I run, okay. Also, okay, so I teach about 10 to 12 classes a term. I also run a nonprofit, Hip Hop Association of Advancement Education. I have our vice president here, Manny Faces, and members of our organization as well. So great to see you here. Totally forgot that. And we should shout out Hip Hop Can Save America. Manny, we'll do that later. Child of This Culture nonprofit. Yonker is out there. Reyes coming in from Minnesota. I'm sure he likes when I say it. Minnesota. So great to have you all here. And Natalie, which Natalie are you? Like, I feel like I know you, but I could be just assuming. And Natalie, welcome. And TS, whoever you are, we love having you here. All right, Tony, go ahead.
Thanks, Tasha. Now I'll introduce myself as an individual. Um, but anyways, yeah, so I've been on the board with Save the Kids for I don't know how many years now. The years kind of meshed together, but since like pre-pandemic days. And this conference used to happen in person in different locations, and then we've been virtual ever since, which has pros and cons. Pros, we can easily connect from all over the place, right? Uh, Salt Lake to New Mexico to New York, everywhere in between, to Minnesota. Um, but I do not have a PhD yet. But that's going to be my midlife crisis. It's coming very soon, coming soon. Because I'm that kind of person, but I do have a master's degree in community health education, kind of similar to public health, but more on the ground, I think is a good way to put it. And I recently earned my CHES certification, Certified Health Education Specialist, so I'm just kind of excited about that. But that's been my passion: health education, health promotion, disease prevention. So I've worked in HIV prevention, diabetes prevention, nutrition. Right now, my focus is mental health, specifically suicide prevention for youth, specifically Native youth. So I work with a lot of the tribes around New Mexico and Southern Colorado. And just really, I love focusing on mental health right now. Aside from that journey, hip hop has always just been part of who I am. As I'm sure a lot of you all can relate. It's just in me, so I'm always kind of converging the two, looking at intersections and um, how hip hop can be used as a lens, a vehicle, um, in all its beauty. So that's me in a nutshell. I MC, I record, make beats, find creative expressions through hip hop like we all do. So again, happy to be here. Um, so to keep it moving, Tasha, our first presenter who is
Wait, before we
scheduled,
start with that, yeah,
go for it.
Mario got destroyed and attacked by the Academy today, so he got pulled to a course. Well, that was really horrible way of saying that. But
That's what it
because
is.
we have the time, and Tony, do you know this group of people? These are just actually a really amazing group.
I mean, I've met Reyes before. Obviously, I know Anthony. I feel like
You
I've,
need to
s-
meet these people. If
I'm a
you are
little
fine with
like,
it.
yeah, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, if you all are fine with that, if you're in a place where you can talk right now, can we meet you? Candy, can you start? Because Candy, you're next. Oh, I don't know where you are today, actually. But I think your org is near him, right? Tony's ish.
So I'm a twin sister. I'm Cindy, and it happens all the time, Tasha. All good. Much love. My twin sister, we look exactly the same, we sound the same,
Yes.
and we do all kinds of things within and out of the
Both
community.
of them with me all the time.
So I
And
really
then
appreciate the love. I am actually now in the East Coast. I'm military connected, so in the East Coast in South Carolina now the last year. So it's been a transition, obviously, between my doctoral program right now, studying hip hop, dance, and higher ed, and a B girl from Florida Angels Crew, Florida, and that's what I represent since 1998. Much love to you. And I think it's so exciting to hear about your organization, Tony. We're a national community-based organization that has a hip hop network of primarily dancers, but our big mission is not only developing breaking within the United States, protecting the image of hip hop within educational systems, and then empowering anybody through hip hop, especially the next generation. We do have a couple of county programs in Central Florida having to do with youth justice and collaboration with Credible Messengers. And we are an agency that actually supports One Credible Messengers in Pine Hills, Florida for the last year. And it's been quite interesting to see what the county's goals are with Credible Messengers and our impact to our urban artists down there. That's been working directly with about 8 clients of youth between the ages of 18 to 24 and trying to prevent them to not only go back to the prison system, but also empower them, change behavior, and support. And so that's been interesting on the back end. We totally feel your pain as being a national virtual organization. We've been around since about 2012. So trying to collaborate within the community, trying to grow, trying to share. There's definitely lots of challenges out there. And I look forward to this connection. So Tasha, as always, I saw something somewhere and I clicked it. And I was like, I need to come to this and just absorb and learn, So of course, I'm beyond excited. Much love also to Manny Faces over there, always encouraging my thought process and understanding whenever I see you all somewhere listening. Inspires me, being a scholar and hip hop practitioner. So all of those things together, and much love to everybody in the call.
how are your babies doing with the move, real quick, before we continue? Yeah, you have a daughter and a son, right? Go off mute, go off mute.
3 kids are doing great.
3, okay.
Thriving. It's so funny. I haven't been able to teach out here, which is always makes me grumpy, but I've been focusing on finishing this.
I know.
Degree.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. 3 kids, 15, 13, 11. They're thriving and they're doing well. My husband's military connected, so he's quite busy.
And got a promotion.
Yes,
Congratulations.
and he's
See,
working.
I can remember everything about her life, just
You
not names.
do. You're so thoughtful. He's shifted. So we were in Colorado. So I was in
Yeah.
Colorado about 3 years during the during the kickoff of COVID. And now he's working a lot more in the Middle East. So that's been interesting to kind of get back into that knowledge and understanding as I witness him serve a little bit larger there in support of what's going on in our integrations within the government and the military service and what that entails. And so that's been interesting to witness and hear about. And also, you know, I'm grateful too. He's a great partner. So being able to be a sounding board on those frustrating days. So yeah.
Well, my heart's with you. Thank him for his service. So I always love seeing your pictures. But
Thank
really
you.
though, can I go to your graduation? Okay.
Yes. It's in
When
May. Yeah, I hope to defend end of January. And you know, child culture has been it's such a growth. And so trying to unite groups of people on aligned things and actually have impact has been something that it's always fluid, you know. And then I love these topics as I look at you guys' agenda in the sense of what success looks like. What does equity look like? You know, what are these things in when we're working directly in small changes of direct information? Our changes for us is one-on-one. That's why when I say, you know, we don't, yes, we might serve like in that youth justice program, maybe 90 kids with programming, but we're really in contact with 8, right? Where we have life plans for 8, we're working one-on-one. And I found our organization is really just supporting that one credible messenger. So we tend to, you know, for dance had a historic moment this year with its Olympic debut. And so our organization, what we found in the protection of hip hop within all these systems and now a pathway towards athleticism and sport, that we continue to do the same things we've done the last 10 years, which is fill gaps for people. How can we support the ones that are empowered to use hip hop in a positive way? And so they need resources, they need connection, they need encouragement. And so that has been where we shifted in supporting businesses. We're about in 6 states now, and we created a membership. So we have about 20 clubs. They're primarily women of color run businesses. And it's been interesting to see the amount of work that it takes to keep a program alive, a business alive, especially after COVID. What kind of resources do they need? What kind of development? What kind of connections do they need? How can we infiltrate these systems to support them? Because most of them are small teams of 1 or 2, and they're doing everything to hold and preserve, at least for us, our dance scene in those places. So it's been cool.
I'm writing this down because we have time later for a chair discussion. And so actually I might want to revisit that, Tony, and look at the impact of COVID on our programming and what resources we need, because Manny and I can take that back to our organization. We might need to revisit that later today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the government did an okay job with funding for businesses, but if you don't match those criteria, you're probably not going to get that funding. If you
No.
are a group of people and not an actual official nonprofit, you're probably not going to get that funding. And so what we found is having this national presence, it takes a lot of work just to be a foreign entity in states. And then not only that, but ensuring the compliance. So a lot of times our groups just don't have the time to do that stuff.
The capacity. Yeah.
It just, the capacity building is just, it's not existent, honestly. And so it's being able to like slowly uphold them and grow and going, okay, yeah, what does it take? I've been fortunate because I am a military connected person. I'm used to going into spaces where it's the first time I've been there. Most of them are very small communities. So I don't mind calling states. I don't mind calling cities to see what we need to do to support or infiltrate systems. That's not a problem for me personally. So, but that takes a lot of effort, you know? And so it's been cool to be able to do that one state at a time and try to set up these connections through our club membership. We had to be official. We had to create a club membership, but hey, that means that businesses have insurance. They save between $3,000 to $5,000 a year because we're providing that insurance for them.
Right.
So those are things that came from hearing from them. You know, where were the gaps? What can we, our small little thing, what can we do? So.
Dang. Dang. So, okay, apparently Manny, do take notes on that. Yeah, so I'm like, we're gonna have to talk to you later. I'm gonna thank you for your introduction. Pass it on. Andrew, you want to tell us what's up from Yonkers? Manny, get the air horns ready for your introduction coming up soon. Go ahead, Andrew. Unmute yourself. There you go.
Go. All right, how's it going? So yes, my name is Andrew. I work for an organization called Yonkers, the Lost City of Hip Hop. Not actually currently working. There was a whole thing, layoff side of thing happens.
We're gonna talk about that later. Yeah, not
I'm
your
doing
layoffs, but what we have to look forward to and prepare for in our
Well, it's
future.
funny you say that because I'm doing a leave replacement right now in Nyack that ends before the break, and there's nothing. There's nothing out. There's no jobs of anything. So I'm like very curious to know why that's the reason. So, but in the meantime, I on the side am working on making curriculum based on the history of Yonkers. Well, now actually I've expanded it because let me explain all that. So we started with this book. It was called Yonkers Lost City of Hip Hop. It's in great condition. No, that's like my own copy from I believe it was like 2019 or something, or 2009. I gotta figure that out. But basically, it's about the history of it, and actually, what's coming up soon is very exciting for the youth to understand the history, but it's not public yet, so I can't say anything. But I got very involved during the 50th with this organization and wanted to keep it going, seeing how it helped the community. So I thought the best way to do it's through education. So we're still waiting for the paperback, but this binder here is what's called The Making of a Scribe, which is his journey to write the Yonkers book. So I'm making curriculum based on that story. And I wanted to be fair to other cities. Like I know Yonkers is great, but I know like there's cities nearby that have a lot of hip hop history that just didn't get recognized. Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, and whatnot. So my buddy AJ Woodson, or if anyone's from Long Island, AJ Rock of JBC Force, he wrote an entire book on Westchester hip hop. So now, I think I took on a
Andrew,
bigger
put that
task
in
than I
the
thought.
chat. Put that info in the chat. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm pushing myself a little too crazy, but I'm gonna be making curriculum for all Westchester now. So we those are still that's gonna be a big deal during the break time because I might be possibly teaching classes around Westchester on these various topics. And also looking for the full-time employment myself. And I do work for another organization teaching privately kind of thing in Portchester, again in Westchester. And I've been doing that for like 4 or 5 years. And that's like kind of like the model I want to bring to a Yonkers class is essentially like these kids only pay $20 for 4 months of lessons and absolutely.
That's awesome.
We started with 5 students our first year, now we're at 50.
That's good.
So it's really grown, it's really been great. And what's just so cool is like, even growing up in Westchester, I feel like I didn't even like see all, like this has allowed me to like see the entire place of Westchester and see what it represents. And that even that there's a Styles P owns a pharmacy in Scarsdale that I never even knew about. And I was
That's just really odd.
right. Well,
That's
the
so
other
many
reason I'm
questions.
doing it, because I know you were talking about the issue with the African American system and stuff like that. Well, just like the systems in general. But even in these higher class systems, I never learned any of this. That's one of the big things is to not feel, And if I'm wearing this, I'm not even kidding. Like people like take their kids and they go like this, like they're scared that I'm gonna do something.
Mm.
And I'm trying to change that narrative because yes, where I grew up, there wasn't hip hop. Of course not. It was Scarsdale. It was like people make bread, people make a lot of money there. So it's not, but that's not what it really is about. It wasn't just, it didn't start off that way, and it wasn't just about the music stuff. Um, I actually think my whole journey has been hip hop because I actually represent an element people forget about, which is beatboxing. So that's the way that I got involved in music, actually. So now my goal is to just not only help those in lower socioeconomic, but to show that everyone and anyone can learn about this. Even DMX said that himself. And by the way, his prayer album just came out. That actually not only has this influenced me in just learning the music stuff, like them working out's gotten me working out. Them, I was just drinking like a healthy shake because of Juices for Life. I've gotten in more into my faith and religion because of hip hop. It's like it's crazy. It's beautiful.
Andrew, the fact that
Crazy.
you mentioned Styles P and DMX in your intro is just quite amazing. And Pharmacy Store. I just did not
It's
have
weird
that on
that
my
it feels
bingo
normal
card
to
today.
say that because, like, it's kind of like if someone else said, they'd be like, "Oh my God, seriously? Oh my God," you know, like they would like fangirl, and I'm like, okay,
I don't know if I'm fangirling, but it's just weird. It's
I
just
know.
weird.
This is
But
not
well,
what I think people thought of when a kid from Scarsdale, New York, a Jewish, white, Caucasian kid from Scarsdale, New York, would be doing with his time, but that's where I
well,
am.
we're glad to have you here, Andrew. And Andrew will be presenting in a little bit. So I'll let you get ready.
Sounds
Manny,
good.
you're up next. You're in the order of my Zoom, so it's not like a preference thing, y'all. Just say I love you all equally. Manny, I'll ask you to unmute. Go ahead.
Yeah. Check 1, 2. Good morning. Peace and love. Hopefully you can hear me, see me, taste me, feel me, smell me. What up, my man Andrew Wang in the building. Everyone that I know, obviously I know some of y'all and know of a bunch of y'all. Honored to be here. Excuse me. A little excited.
Like an old man thing. That was like
It's ridiculous. It's actually nerves. I actually think it's nerves. Every time I'm
For
about to go live,
what?
I have this like weird coughing fit. It's ridiculous. Which is crazy because I
That-
talk all the
Well,
time.
that's
So
the weirdest. I know that's the
yeah,
weirdest
it's
thing.
ridiculous.
Okay, go ahead.
And so I'm always coughing. But anyway, my name is Manny Faces. As some of y'all know, that's not my actual government name. My actual government name is Bobby Elbows. So stupid joke. So anyway, just want to say what's up. I'm the I'm the founding director of the Center for Hip Hop Advocacy, which is a
I'd like to mention that he did the cough and an old man joke within 2 minutes. Yeah, I'm asking you a mute.
Yeah, please. I had it. But maybe I don't listen. Anyway, so that's an organization that I founded a bunch of years ago. It's still very nascent, and it's actually there's a behind the scenes thing happening where I'm rebranding it and coming to life with another organization in its place. But I'm also affiliated, honored and privileged to be down with the Hip Hop Association for Advancements in Education, run by our dear friend Tasha. And I've been helping out with the global conference on hip hop education that we've been putting on for a few years. So shouts to all that work. The pride and joy of what I do is a podcast and live stream called Hip Hop Can Save America, in which I interview folks who are doing the kind of work that we're talking about here. Hip hop being used in areas outside of entertainment that are, generally speaking, being used to help uplift humanity and improve society in areas like education, but also science and technology, and in health and wellness, and in entrepreneurship, and in commerce, and in politics and social justice and activism, in spirituality and self-help, and a bunch of different areas, and basically all aspects of humanity, I would posit, can be improved by the authentic and intentional integration of hip-hop music, culture, ethos, and spirit into those fields. And we see that again in the work that y'all are doing. And so what I try to do is amplify those as a journalist, sort of by trade. I stumble my way through life, so I don't have any real trade. But having stumbled into journalism some years ago, that's become my forte. So I like to spread the gospel, as it were, about the work that we're all doing. So Hip Hop Can Save America, the podcast. I do a live stream every Monday night on YouTube and some other social media channels where I present hip hop news of the day. But I like to say hip hop news that isn't about dumb-ish. And we, again, just kind of curate and spread the word about all the people doing this incredible work, all of the aspects of hip hop that are woefully unappreciated by even our own media, quote unquote, our own hip hop media, and certainly by mainstream media. And so I fill that void, I fill that gap. And I mentioned the podcast, I mentioned the live stream. Here, just to I'm trickling out news. I haven't done an official announcement, but there's also Hip Hop Could Save America, the book, and it'll be coming out in 2025 on Peter Lang Publishing, Academic Press. I'll give more about that later. I don't know the timeline. I gave it to them. I don't even know if they like it. So who knows? Maybe it won't come out. Maybe they'll be like, never mind. Why did we give this guy a deal? So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, in between time, I'm here to talk about something that's different than what's on my agenda, because that's kind of a bigger project that I'm working on, but it'll be connected. And it's more inspiration than presentation. But hopefully I'll be able to, help uplift us. And, when we do this work, we don't get paid for it. We don't get appreciated for it. We don't get written up for it. We don't get publicized for it. So sometimes we need to be a little pick me up to make sure that we just know that we're doing the right thing and keeping it going. So I'll help us there, but also not just preach to the choir. Anyone who might be watching or looking from outside that's like, what is this hip hop education save the kids? Hip hop doesn't save the kids. It hurts the kids. We're going to talk about that. I'll be here a little bit later on. I'll let y'all go. I'm done for now. And yes, because you asked for it.
Many faces.
You sick for this one.
I love it every time. I'm 5, y'all. I'm 5 years old. Andrew was repping his Hip Hop Can Save America sweatshirts, which you can buy on the website. Look at that. Wait, take that. There you go. There you go. I don't even have one. I should probably buy one. My bad. I have old ones that I was going through my gear today and I was like, wow, all of my stuff is just falling apart. I've had it for too long. Time to go back out to some jams and buy some stuff.
Adding it to my Christmas list real quick.
Yes. It's actually a good conversation piece because people are like, wait, what does that even mean? TS, I don't know if you would like I'm not putting you on the spot, y'all. If you're just like casually listening, don't feel like you need to say anything. Oh, you're here.
Greetings. Yes, my name is actually Tahira, and I'm tuning in from Philly. And I want to say that I found out about this conference from Andrew. So thank you for posting. So Andrew and I don't officially know him, but we attended the Zoom regarding archiving with Sarita Gates and Ralph McDaniel. So we met in the chat and then we connected after that. But in any case, I'm actually a PhD student at Temple University. I'm getting my doctorate in media and communications and focusing a lot on emerging media technologies, but also hip hop and hip hop music, all of that, music technology. And one of the things that I'm exploring right now for my dissertation is actually the connection of the hip hop fashion brands, but specifically looking at a lot of the Black-owned streetwear companies. And I'm exploring the social and cultural capital of hip hop through some different theories. So that one particular theory, as well as looking at, say, semiotics. So I deal a lot with like Stuart Hall and race and representation. So that's the general scope of what I'm researching. And then my background is tech. So computer and information science is my undergrad. And then I have a master's in health informatics. So as far as methodology, I'm really into Python and machine learning. And I'm exploring a lot of the data, especially a lot of archival data and song lyrics. So doing some lyrics information processing and pulling out a lot of the different elements that are actually embedded in the lyrics through these algorithms that can be used. And just a note, because I love your vibe, Tasha, and you mentioned all of the research that you're doing as far as the just the accumulation, right, of information about hip hop. That's really where I'm at as well. But the cool thing is that there's a way where we can use Python to use all of the documents, especially if things are digitized, and we can pull out the prominent topics. So one of the projects that I want to do, maybe in connection with my dissertation, is to actually digitize my collection of source magazines, because I want to start really getting into, for one, preserving those magazines, but then also using the algorithms to dive into the content to really see those topics in the major themes. So I would really love to work with you and everyone else that's on here as well. And I'm just so excited about this conference, and I'm so thankful that I found out about it and that it actually is accessible to me.
Number one, you're a unicorn. Do you know how excited I just got when you're like quantitative data and hip hop? Like, oh gosh, the nerd in me. And then I'm thinking, okay, first of all, we need to study this, obviously. And I have so many people I can connect you with in like journalism and media and tech in hip hop. Someone, obviously, have you met Manny yet? I don't know if you've ever. You need to definitely, especially we're talking about journalism and media. And you should meet Harry Allen, media assassin for Public Enemy, one of the first to start writing about hip hop on behalf of hip hop. So let's connect later, because we have, oh my gosh. You see the book I was putting? It's a meta-analysis. So I think I want to do a meta-analysis. Y'all, for anyone that knows us, it's like a quantitative, you go through all like massive loads of data. But the problem is in hip hop, we don't replicate studies. We don't have longitudinal data. We don't have a lot of quantitative data. So coding it in that way, getting that data in quantitative, using quantitative methods makes my heart skip with joy, but it scares me. So I would definitely love to work with you, because I can tell you all kinds of stuff. I can share my research. See, this is what we need to do more, y'all. This is why I'm happy we're doing introductions right here, because I'm like, I will tag you in my data for a systematic review. You pull what you need to pull, because this, yeah, we can't do it all, but we all have different areas that we work on, obviously here, which is kind of awesome. So thank you for that introduction. If you can you put your info in the chat so we can all slightly stalk you? And I'm a doctoral coach, so if you ever need help with your dissertation, not the methods and analysis part, Python and everything, heck no, but I can help with the hip hop part. I would love to support you in any way I can. So welcome here. And then we're gonna go to another, Tony, can you change permissions for everyone? Because these people are law-abiding Zoom users, and I trust that they will. So I don't know what permissions we have, but I think he can. It's okay. Nakedness is okay, Manny.
All right. I think everyone
able to-
should have free range now.
You could only imagine our board meetings. Reyes, are you there? Are you typing? Are you in class? I feel like Reyes is doing a million things always at the same time, but hopefully. Is this your
Right.
office? What is
I'm
this?
at work, y'all. What up?
That's see, I was like, I knew he was probably sneaking this, but it's aligned with your work. Tell him about
so,
yourself, because this
for
is
sure.
another amazing person that blows me away.
Tasha, you're gonna make me cry. So, Pete, y'all, this is Reyes, Zulu King Reyes from Minnesota, St. Paul, Minnesota. I try not to talk about myself too much. I try to humble myself and really just.
You need to talk about
I got
yourself
all these
because of
damn
what you do.
titles, but do I live up to the titles? But
Yes.
I've been.
Stop it.
That's the radio. Yep. So I'm in my office right now. I'm a high school social worker. I've been doing social work for 8 years. Down with the Twin Cities Omega Zulus, which is part of an organization called the Zulu Union, James Doyle Yancey Foundation. I teach a lot of hip hop in classroom settings through an organization called Freedom School, which is a summer. It's a movement, really, but it's a organization that is really in tune with reading and liberation. And if you can read, you can do anything else. And I travel a lot. I iron. I make bomb grilled cheese. I mean, I'm a person, you know what I mean? Like, I was down with Save the Kids for a while, for a long time. We did this first conference we did in in Minnesota in 2015 at Augsburg University. And it was really dope. It was the same day as Twin Cities Dilla Day, and we had the after party up the street. It was wild, but there's a video out on that. I'm working on laying the foundation for the Minnesota Hip Hop Museum, and I'm about to have a physical space by August 2025, because gathering gathering memorabilia from museums is kind of tough. It really is, like when stuff is, and then not always everyone's down with the team, and you kind of have to do stuff. You just kind of show and prove and do the work, and don't wait for people to come to meetings or come to, just go get the money, get some grants, get some spots, and do it. And you're gonna get pushback from people from your own city, your own team, your own circles, and that's okay. And I think that makes us stronger. But teaching, I'm also writing a article about hip hop hip hop teaching, hip hop pedagogy is about relationships. And I'm really in tune with how these students, depending on what grade we're in, I'll digress after this, are receiving what we're talking about, right? They have a whole different paradigm, a whole different group think than us that are above 40 and even 30, really. They don't have the same experiences, but that is okay, and we need to recognize that they don't give a fuck about no Grandmaster Flash and all kinds of shit, right? Like they're like, Mr. Reyes, I don't even know who you're talking about. Who are you talking about, right? That's one question I had in a classroom once. This is no BS. I was like, name one member of the Wu-Tang Clan. Crickets. They had no idea what I'm talking about. Man, these were ninth graders, by the way. But anyways, so how are we as educators like adapting to continuously adapting to new teaching styles and new learning and evidence and how and being trauma informed and all these things that go into teaching hip hop. You could teach the elements if you're a breaker and a dancer. You teach it physically, DJing, you teach it. But I'm talking about this, if we're teaching history, culture, the lessons, we got to be kind of, cognizant of who our audience is and our relationship with that audience, given it be second grade, because second graders will surprise you. And then you'll have 12th graders that will surprise you. So, it really is circumstantial in who, but knowing our audience, knowing that we are here to serve them and love them and guide them. Our time is over. Youth, the youth is taking us over. And then, so, but like a kid once said, a kid said, hip hop's from Chicago. And I go, what? Who taught you that? That's house music, man. So it's like, he laughed and I was like, man, hip hop's from New York, man. He's like, okay. So if we not keep a teaching, then just people are going to create their own narratives, so. But it is an honor to be here with y'all. I'm really here more to listen and learn, and I'll be logged on, because I'm at work, and I had to shut my door. So, but it is an honor to be here with y'all. Peace, love, and I'm always here, and I'll set my stuff in the chat.
Oh my, see, I was like, you better say stuff about yourself. First of all, I didn't know you made really good grilled cheeses, and I've been with you how many times? Never. I mean, I don't know how you would transport the grilled cheese.
That's the history of a latchkey kid, man. You know what I'm saying? Got to cook for yourself, Mom.
Oh, you had cheese?
Well,
Okay.
we had the black cheese,
I like butter.
Yeah.
All right.
You
No,
could beat
margarine.
somebody up
We
with it,
didn't
or
have
you could cook it.
It was margarine and some sugar on some bread.
You
know what I
con
mean?
mantequilla tortillas. That's it.
Yeah. We probably got more
All
in
right.
trouble using the tortilla, but yes.
I'm planning on being out there in the Twin Cities next year, April or May. So
Grilled cheese.
if we can link up, for some grilled cheese.
Tony, if you come May 16th through the 18th, that's Twin Cities Dilla Day 10-year anniversary.
Okay.
So we're gonna be bubbling that weekend. Plus, it's my birthday weekend.
Okay.
So if you need a
Hopefully
spot, I got a spot for a cheap condo. You can crash it.
Wow, awesome.
Not
Thank
my
you.
spot. You
Yeah.
ain't staying in my shit. I'm talking about in the same building.
That would be me too. I'd be like, I know a place, but
It's
not.
all,
I'll reserve it for you, bro.
I
Okay,
appreciate the
Yeah.
let me
honesty,
know.
be straight up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my
Peace,
goodness.
y'all.
Okay. Well, welcome, Reyes. Always an honor. I get to see him not recently, because like I haven't been traveling, but okay, I'm just making myself sad. All right. We have 3 more people, and then I think Andrew is gonna start around 11-ish. So Andrew, just so you have a heads up. Natalie, if you are you able to, let me see.
I'm not on child safety lock anymore.
Oh, I know. I was like, oh my gosh. This is
I know
so
that voice. I know
regimented.
which Natalie that is.
Oh, this is the real Natalie.
True? Is it true?
Wherever my people are, I will be. So Manny and the mayor of Yonkers and Tasha, I'm always here to support you. And so if you're on Janet Jackson's internet doing some education work or talking, I'm gonna find myself there somehow, somewhere, as long as I'm not caught up in somebody's meeting. And so I'm from California. I spent a lot of time propping up a lot of pioneers from across the globe through cultural exchanges and festivals and other projects. I ran I'm no longer with Culture Fix, but I spent several years with my girl Nora running that, and she's taken on the torch. But however, at the moment, I've spent the last 3 years building the National Public Housing Museum, and we launched the cooperative museum store and really spend a lot of time trying to make them understand why hip hop is necessary in that story and how we need to be continuously telling that story and centering that in this museum project. And so that has been a labor of love. And I spend most of my time using emerging technology like blockchain to build funding platforms. And so I'm always looking for cool projects to fund and bring people into this tech world, because these people got a lot of money and they need to spend it. And so, and you know, we can't always rely on traditional philanthropy and institutions to like really fund our work, especially without all the strings attached and 900 pages of paperwork they make you fill out. And so I've really been working on a lot of that, and I've been also working on a film about South African hip hop. So we talked about archiving. Archiving. I spent a lot of time scouring data as a researcher and doing data related analysis, yada, yada, yada. So that's me in a nutshell. Always here to support my people. I'm just here for the snacks. That's it.
You know what? That's probably a part of in person that I miss, is the food. And seeing you all in person. Should put that. But I also like food. Welcome. And another data person. Oh my God. You know
love
what?
it.
Gosh. Okay. This is just making me so happy. All right. We have 3 more people here. Oh, shoot. Prism. Can you get on? Are you at work? We're all like, I don't know if Prism can get on.
Peace. What's good,
Woo!
family? How you doing? All right. Yeah, I am at work. I had to sneak out for lunch real quick, so I'm in the car. But yeah, I'm currently working with one of the Job Corps out in the Midwest, so I'm doing career preparation periods now. You know, I got to mix the hip hop knowledge and entrepreneurial knowledge into it. Prism from chosenhiphop.com, formerly Chosen Zulu, of the Almighty Zulu Nation. Back in 1993, we started. We became our own nonprofit organization, or our own grassroots organization doing community work. We basically turned everything we learned from hip hop knowledge and knowledge of self into personal and professional development for the hip hop community. So we do life coaching programs, group coaching programs for teens and young adults, help them map out their whole life plan, using, again, the skills and benefits that we learn from hip hop as a guideline. And we teach hip hop as a culture the same way you teach an indigenous culture. I'm a hip hop cultural specialist, a hip hop motivational speaker, a hip hop business consultant. We're based out of New York, but we are a national and international network. I've been working for the past 30 years with people like Tasha, Manny Faces, Andrew, Emil YX, Martha Diaz, currently working with the Hip Hop Education Center and Hip Hop Congress on a few different projects. And this is like a hip hop family reunion. So it's a pleasure to see all y'all, pleasure to meet the new faces. Check us out, chosenhiphop.com, Chosen Hip Hop on Facebook, and Chosen_Hip Hop on Instagram. But I'm here to spectate and watch while I work. So thank you for having me. Peace and blessings.
I go to Prism a lot for my history on the culture, so always utilize him as an amazing resource, historian, pioneer there. So it's great to have you all. I'm like trying not to get anyone in trouble at work. I'll try to keep the F-bombs down. All right. So the other people, I don't know, Jennifer, if you're able to introduce yourself real quick. We are so happy to have you here. Don't know. She might be at work too. Don't worry, Jennifer. And then Anne, if you would like to. And if not, y'all don't worry. This is not normal in conferences. It's just, we just get so excited to see our friends. Okay. You can use the chat now. Y'all drop your info, your resources, your stuff you're selling, because we need to get it out there. These are great resources. Y'all kind of do similar work. We all have 10 jobs, living color. If you know that skit. So yeah, drop it in, share it out. That's probably the greatest part of conferences like this, especially within our culture, because we find ways to support and collaborate. Less work on us. And these people are specialists, so great to have them. All right, Andrew Wang. Good, sir.
Go
Oh,
Yeah,
you can
I'm
only
here.
chat with specific people for reals?
Yeah, it's only saying you. Tony.
Everyone and anyone. Okay,
Got
try it.
Now
Try
work.
it.
Now work.
Okay, I've never restricted chats in my life, so I just had to learn how to unrestrict chats.
It's like being child locked.
Eek. All right. So don't put anything crazy in the chat. All right. So what we're gonna do, Andrew, I'm gonna turn this over to you. I'm gonna go off
Sure.
video
Yeah.
and audio. I will come and message you. Andrew, is it okay? And it's about 10 minutes before your presentation, y'all, for questions and answers. So that's how I'll prompt you. But ooh, we got more people joining. Andrew, no pressure. I'm just kidding. You're great. Hey, y'all
Like,
have
yeah.
fun with this. Another part about hip hop conferences is we can be ourselves. That's a part in a lot of conferences. So you always have this, hello, welcome to those that are just joining us. Welcome.
no.
Hey,
Hello.
hey. But again, I want to say this to the presenters because I think a lot of times we go to these conferences and feel we have to have this persona of professors in academia, and that's not what we're about here. We are smart, we are skilled, we are talented. I want you to be yourself. I want you to be silly if you want to be silly. I want you to say if you got to say You are amongst friends, people that love you and support you and are just excited to learn from you and about you. So with that being said, it's an honor to have our first presenters, and I will pass this along to you and go off video mute because I like touch my face a lot and I don't want you to be distracted. All right, here we go. Welcome.
All right. Are we recording? Oh, we are recording. Awesome. All right. So I'm gonna do what Manny sometimes says, like, yes, you can read the bio on the website and you can find out what we're talking about, but I'd rather just do it where it's kind of more natural. So my name is Andrew Wang. I'm a licensed music educator in the state of New York and the chief music educator of Yonkers Law City of Hip Hop, with my name being Mr. Hip Hop, and I have credit for that. So, and I am so excited to share what we're doing. I work with Jerome Enders, who, if I told you previously, has written books like Yonkers Law City of Hip Hop, Making of a Scribe, and for today, we're going to be talking about his book on sound healing, Self-Help Life, which he wrote along with his wife, who is a licensed clinical psychologist in Yvette Cabby. Yeah. So first things first, I'm gonna just share my screen. Let me just, oh my God, it's like I've been used to Google Meet more than I have this. What's the button to share screen again?
Should be at the bottom right, but we might need to enable that. That
I
might be
just
another.
showed it should be able to share multiple participants.
Oh, share. There we go.
Yeah.
Woo.
Magic button has appeared. Go forth.
All right. So now you can see everything, right? Very cool. So let me get this started. So yes, Yonkers Law City of Hip Hop presents Self-Help Life, Sound Healing and Therapy by Jerome Enders, Yvette Cabby, and myself, Andrew Wang. So I want to start with what is sound therapy or sound healing therapy? Well, sound therapy is a practice that is based on this ancestral understanding of the power of sound as a healing agent. involves the conscious and intentional use of specific sounds, such as those produced by instruments such as gongs, Tibetan bowls, shamanic drums, native flutes, and I have some surprises with this, to promote balance and well-being on physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual levels. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to get a little introduction of what Self-Help Life is, the purpose of why Jerome did write this, and what's his instrument of choice. So hopefully you can hear the audio. If you can't, just let me know in the chat. I know that could be a little tricky sometimes. There's no audio just yet. Trying to see it so I can.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Jerome Enders, and I'm an author, filmmaker, and music educator. On behalf of myself and music educator Andrew Wang and my wife, clinical psychologist Dr. Yvette Cavey Enders, we'd like to thank the 9th Annual International Hip Hop Studies Conference to allow us to participate on their platform. And we'd like to say we're humble and grateful to the world. But before we start our presentation of sound healing, sound therapy, please take a look at this video, which is the premise of the book. Thank you.
Self-Help Life by Jerome Enders, Part 1. This book is sought after because many can relate to it. Some applied the principles within and became great to it. In the beginning was the Word that came to life and continues to live. These poems bear fruit that continue to give. You feel free again. You can see again. Now visualize your goals on your favorite sports coupe. Utilize this book in concert with your family, therapists, and the rest of your support group. Overcome the bruising, agony of losing, loneliness, confusion. The words are non-judgmental. They don't care what drug you are using. We just don't identify the problems. We provide solutions.
Before we get into the presentation, I will give you a little backdrop on what sparked this particular project and the chain of events that led me back into sound healing. Okay? It started in 2021 in Kissimmee, Florida, when my daughter went missing. It brought forth a lot of stress, a lot of chaos, and it put me in a different place. I was losing my memory. I was physically, mentally, and spiritually sick. And I was losing my cognitive skills, my cognitive abilities, and I knew, regardless of which way it would end, I needed some help. So I went back to my instrument, which was music, which was my voice, which was lyrics, which was singing, which was just sound healing. I knew that was the only way that I could recover from a crisis like.
This is Gaddafi Iverson, and I'm reading from The Making of Scribe. My voice, my instrument of choice. While some of my friends chose to play the drums, horns, and piano, beside writing, my instrument of choice was my voice. Yes, your voice is an instrument. When you look at it in a scientific perspective, your voice is an instrument because it can produce sounds and melodies like other musical instruments. The human voice is essentially a wind instrument, with the lungs supplying the air, the vocal cords setting up the vibrations.
Oh yeah, sorry.
When I first started, I was I knew I had to rebuild myself up. So I started choosing or gravitating to music that stimulated me. For example, I'll listen to a Lionel Richie song just because of the vibe of the music. And then I'll listen to a Mary J. Blige song, this particular song, because of the words and the vibe of the music, Or then when I was working out, on a physical plane, physical, I may listen to the locks, something with the locks that'll stimulate me on a physical, to work out. But then, let's say when I was meditating, something like that, I'll throw on the ancient sound of the Om. I'll vibrate and meditate on the Om, go through some different affirmations and elevation practices on the Om. And then with the same thing, I may get into some tribal stuff and listen to some Native American flute music to vibrate on that. You understand? So between all those different elements of music and different frequencies, I was using that to raise my vibration and stimulate myself.
So he's talking about different instruments of choice, the voice, but he was also just talking about flute, and you can use drums, and you can use shakers. So let me get to the next thing. Like I just said, shamanic drums, native flute, smaller percussion instruments like rattles. So we'll start with the native flute. I don't have an actual flute with me, or a native flute, but as someone that has taught elementary a while, I have this little recorder here. If you know, that was mask off. And then the shamanic drum, again, I'll go into details of what it's made of, but I have my own kid-like version of it. It's a lollipop drum. And then a maraca, or something like a small rattle. I was looking for the real thing. Couldn't really find it, but think about it. We use salt and pepper shakers. Or if you want to get a real shaken effect, these are chocolate covered almonds, but it has like that ocean drum effect. Like the beads of the drum sounding like the ocean, which is very therapeutic and sound healing. So the drum is made of animal skin, stretched over a wooden shell, and produce a deep pulsating sound when playing with your hands or sticks. And the native flute made of natural ingredients, or natural material, I should say, such as bamboo, wood, like this, or bone, and produce soft, melodious sound when blown. So how is this used in a sound therapy session? Well, the drum induces an altered state of consciousness through the instrument's pulsating and the rhythmic sound. You can facilitate connection with the spiritual world and promote physical and emotional healing. Now, if you heard the beauty of that recorder, or a flute in a sense, it helps to promote meditation, relaxation, and connection with nature, conveying a sense of peace and harmony. And then this little shaker that I had before can help create rhythmic patterns, can stimulate your blood circulation, relieve muscle tension, and promote a sense of connection and community during group sessions. So what are the properties? Well, the drum has we just said before, pulsating rhythm. It also has a very deep sound to it. If it was like a real drum, it would have a bigger vibration echoing back, but it does have a low sound. So that deep layer of the being facilitates the release of the repressed emotions and promoting physical and emotional healing. It's incorporated in meditation, guided visualization, and body work, providing a complete sound experience. Now the flute, very soft sound, tranquil, in connection with nature. And when you're playing this instrument, if you've ever done so, which hopefully you guys did when you were in elementary school, as that's usually a requirement. When you play the instrument, it's with slow, deep breathing. And that same deep breathing is utilized, or should be used, when you're naturally breathing. And it helps you to get more centered and present. And it's also easy on these types of instruments, because everything is shown there with the holes, to improvise. And improvisation is just as important to help the person that's using the instrument understand what the client needs and their emotional sense to improvise to help them during their sessions. So now we're going to do a little breathing exercise. I know we don't have anyone's camera on, but I'm going to make this a requirement. So as I said before, DMX's Prayer album just came out. And what was really cool about the album is that there's instrumental part. So we are going to do a little bit of breathing 4-7-8 technique using this track. The 4 is breathing in. 7 means you're going to hold it for 7 counts. And then you're going to naturally release from your mouth the air for 8 counts. So I'm hoping everyone's doing this. Maybe you get a grade for it. I'm just kidding. So follow me. 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then release. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One more time. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4, hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and release. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Congratulations, you just did a nice deep breathing exercise. So I'm a music teacher, so I may not be able to do the physiology part, but I know how musical elements connect to sound healing. For example, in a melody, it's best to hear melodies if they're, melodies can create different emotions. It can keep you up in arms or it can put you to tears. It can take into spirit and open your heart. With rhythm, it could affect your heart rate, your brainwave rhythms, your breath, nervous system, cranial sacral rhythms, and our walking or dancing rhythms. And the crazy thing is, when you see the exact like automatic rhythm, that creates more stress because it's not natural when you're trying to execute the rhythm. Healing rhythm is one that breathes and changes ever so slightly. And like I said, a stressful rhythm is starting off very nice and easy, like if I were just to tap, but then if I started tapping fast and then I went back to, it's just too much happening at once and it could be overwhelming. The average heart rate and brainwave rhythm respond to a particular note. And the most important rhythm for our body is metabolism, which is the rhythm of brainwaves and heart rate when relaxed and at rest. And on the instrument, it's very important when you're playing to match the resting metabolism or the rhythm that's most comfortable to that individual person during a session. What about dynamics? Dynamics, by the way, is the volume. So dynamics affects the overall energy that builds or breaks down over time. So having a smooth flow up and down, like the Fibonacci sequence, makes you more relaxed, while a rough one can make you feel more stressed and agitated. A person's system reflects the intensity of the music, and the length of time create activation or calming is important, because too fast, they may not follow along. And I'm one of those people that needs to see something visually. So if you're doing something really fast, I'm not going to be able to catch up. Too slow, and they become bored. So when it's all correct, we know and feel as if music was just like a living person. And then we get, I'll do this quickly, the pitch frequency. So if you ever went to a classical orchestra concert, you would hear usually the principal oboist playing this note, which that note being an A. And usually that A is 440 hertz. Now, if you tune something too high, it can really create a lot of stress for people. And there's this ideology that 520 hertz and 432 hertz has been shown to emote the feeling of love. It's actually not true. And there's really no understanding of which one but it just depends on the individual. So in a sense, when you're tuning a ensemble, you can use any pitch as long as it feels comfortable with the people around you. And then again, that goes with the tuning systems. How many notes are there in an octave? The frequency. So usually natural tuning, it has different frequencies. Each note has a different frequency in that octave. Now, in equal temper tuning, so a lot of the music you hear on streaming services and such uses equal temper tuning, which means that each frequency is the same. But if you go to a concert of classical musicians, they're usually still playing in the natural tuning to make it feel more authentic. So now we're going to be talking a little bit about words and mood, because remember, he talked about being a singer and or using his voice, singing with his poetry, and you're going to learn a little bit about morning affirmations through a rap.
Which was my voice. And besides that, I took it further, scribing with my words. Okay, so I went back to my words, and I intentionally chose certain words that will raise me up and keep my vibration elevated, you know. But let me read from the book again, Words and Mood. Words have a significant impact on our mood and emotions. Here are some effects on words and mood. Number one, positive words elevate mood. So that's what I did. I stayed with the positive words. I gave myself positive affirmations for my subconscious mind through repetition. And then I stayed away from the negative words, can diminish mood. Then I gravitated to empathy and support. I was dealing with words with empathy and support. Motivation and inspiration. I was connecting to words with motivation and inspiration. And then I was dealing with emotional triggers. Okay? So I took the vibrations and different music that was touching me, and I was choosing my words carefully. And this is what I came up with. Hopefully, Self-Help Life, through the audio and the physical book, can help heal.
Last session, we talked about how you would set the tone for the day. You mentioned morning affirmations. How is that working out for you?
Well, that one's easy. My early morning gratitude affirmation. Grand rise, grand rise. Grand rising. Grand rising, grand rising. I get gratitude as I look at the horizon. Grand rising. Grand rising, grand rising, grand rising. Beautiful horizon. It's a beautiful horizon. Grand rising. Grand rising. Grand rise. Grand rise. I'm happy to be alive. I feel revived. Grand rise. Look into the skies. I sit and visualize as the caterpillar turn into butterflies. Grand rise, grand rise, grand rise. Today, what will be your prize? Eat a healthy breakfast after you exercise. Look into your significant eyes. Grand rise, grand rise, grand rise. Visualize. Materialize, visualize, visualize, deeper and deeper, deeper and deeper. Today I vow to remove the blockage that got my third eye in the sleeper. Grand rise, grand rise, grand rise. I'm rising, focused, energetic, and uncompromising. Grand rise, grand rise. Grand rise. I'm rising. I'm energetic, focused, and uncompromising. Grand rise. Grand rise. Grand rise. Grand rising. Grand rising. Grand rising. I get gratitude as I look at the horizon. Grand rising. Grand rising, grand rising, grand rising. Beautiful horizon. It's a beautiful horizon.
Is that 5 or is that mean?
Yeah, so you're about 5 minutes, so we
Okay.
I asked if anyone wants to put questions in the chat, they can, but you can continue, and then I'll let you know if there's a question in the chat. But next one's at 11:30. Go ahead.
I'm actually going to switch this one a little bit. I want to get more audience participation. So we're going to do an affirmation that's called, so shall it be. Actually, let me play it on here. And they're going to give you a little directions. And you're going to do it along with me. And like I said, you might be graded on this, so you better be doing it correctly. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow, you sound so intense. Treatment is definitely helping. Continue to relax. You're doing well. We are going to continue with sound healing. We are going to introduce the virtual world, also known as virtual reality or VR. Put on your VR gear and we will get started with sound healing. Remember, here you are able to be free, and this environment is non-judgmental. Before we start the next session, relax by using your affirmations. I would like you to repeat after me.
All right, listen.
As I decree,
As I decree,
so shall it be.
so shall it be.
As I decree,
As I decree,
so shall it be.
so shall it be.
I'm free.
I'm free.
I'm free.
I'm free.
I'm free.
I'm free.
Free. Free. Free. As I decree, so shall it be. As I decree, so shall it be. As I decree, so shall it be. I'm free. 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 As I decree, so shall it be. Free. Free.
Repeat after me.
Repeat after.
Round and round and round.
Round and round and round.
Rhythms in the
The
sound.
rhythms in the sound.
Round and round and round.
Round and round and round.
Rhythms in the sound.
Rhythms in the sound.
Round and round and round.
Round and round and round.
Rhythms in the sound.
Rhythms in the sound.
Round and round and round.
Round and round and round.
Rhythms in the sound.
Rhythms in the sound.
Round and round and round.
Round and round.
Rhythms in the sound.
Rhythms in the sound.
Free.
Free.
Free. Free. Free. Free. Free. Free.
Repeat after me.
Oh.
Repeat after me. Repeat after me. Divine mind, when properly aligned, I intentionally design.
Divine mind, intentionally.
Divine mind, when properly aligned, I
Probably shouldn't
intentionally
have said it.
design.
Divine mind, we're properly.
Divine mind, when properly aligned, I intentionally design.
Divine mind.
Free. 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 Free.
I think you got the idea of that. But that's how, I think that could be the way it could be utilized. I know Rage was talking about how it be utilized in the classroom. That's a great way of using it, not just for the fact of the actual affirmation itself, but listen to the music of that. You got a lot of, not only the hip hop rhythm and feel, but you got cultural understanding. Did you hear some of those sitars were in there? You heard the tablas, like that's what teaching, and especially like with social emotional learning be such a high topic and diversity, equity, inclusion. That was all that diversity and equity inclusion, what you just did. The idea of having different music from different cultures, everyone doing it together. So there's the equity, including everyone doing it. And the idea that like you're saying these things repeating, but you saying it has a different meaning than someone else saying it, maybe based on certain stories or circumstances. So that's how I judge it or see it. Yep, perfect. Let me
So
just stop sharing.
I'm Andrew. And I think because part of our conference theme, we really wanted to look at both positives and some negatives. I guess we wanted to introduce
Right.
part of the wanted that, right? Because and we'll talk about this later. The reality is that these hip hop programs are going to be put under pressure with new administration, new legislation coming out.
And
But
Project 25.
understand, and what I want to piggyback before we get Manny up here in a minute, is kind of understanding how it can be embedded across disciplines, how these indigenous ways of teaching and learning that's inspired our culture still manifests across disciplines in every subject. So when people are like, well, I don't have a hip hop degree program, you don't have to, because these techniques, these skills really focused on, and I see Dr. Ready to go. So I'll let you go before we introduce Manny, but understanding how these can help heal our kids, because right now we've got a mental health crisis. So we have some real issues in education and in community orgs. So go ahead. I know you all wanted to say kind of your last or any reflection before we turn it over to Manny.
Are you talking to me or?
I think Dr. JL, you were gonna.
Oh, okay, that's what I was.
Okay, I just you
No,
looked
I
at.
wouldn't. No, I just was giving you affirmation by my
I love
head.
it. I was like, I know. Okay. But yeah, totally.
No,
So
I
thank you.
agree. Like, there's all these restorative practice morning meetings. Like, this is like still being a policy in schools. So it doesn't just have to be, and that's the other thing I try to do, and that's the other thing I'm incorporating curriculum wise is like, I don't have to just teach that for music just because there was music in the background. You could teach that in any other subject and connect it, but if it's English, can maybe connect it to a certain story that connects to that emotion in the affirmation. Or talking about how did that sound healing music get to places like India and that music that started the history of it, the social studies aspect, you know? There's a, and I
I'm
really,
gonna cut you off, Andrew, so because we have time, but
Oh,
keep
yeah.
those thoughts because we are gonna have plenty of time embedded and
Yeah,
weave throughout
I
for
agree.
discussion, please, and keep it in the chat going. So, you know, for time's sake, I have to cut you off, but thank you so much, y'all, for presenting that. I think one of the triumphs, and before we go to Manny, of this past decade is actual systematic research using interventions found and tested in multiple disciplines to kind of support hip hop. So especially in therapy, psychology, social work, they're kind of leading this charge in making sure that they use scientific methods and practices that have been shown to be effective. So thank you for highlighting that work. Raphael Travis, great for that as well. Dr.
Yes.
Elliot Gann. So some great, who else am I? Ian Levy doing it. I don't know.
Elliot
I always say
Gann.
his name wrong. Sorry. But yeah, amazing work in that field, working with the young people, especially that are kind of having a hard time. All right.
Hey, Dr. Adolf, of course, JC Hall up in New York City.
Oh,
Dr.
yeah. I've always
James
forgotten.
Norris, Dr. James Norris also does work in these these intersections.
I feel like you're like the
Okay.
fact checker now with this. Like,
They've all been on my show, bro. Like I gotta, you know what I mean? Like I talk to everyone, so it is what it is.
Yeah, Manny's like, I know.
all right,
But
can I
yeah,
just say
thanks to
one,
Manny putting that
One-
information out there.
one quick thing?
Yeah.
This is actually kind of, I don't know if you realized, last year was the first conference ever was this one that we ever done.
Oh, there you go. Look at you. Never mind. I was going to say something inappropriate. I'm not doing it. But yes, welcome. Hey, so we got Manny up next, my other fan band. New presentation, y'all. Preserving and empowering hip hop culture, a multi-point plan for a sustainable future. This is a new title. I'll drop it in the chat. And I'm so excited, Manny, because every time I talk to you, and literally we talk probably every week, I learn something new and I'm inspired by something.
Thanks.
Just take it.
Thanks.
Jeez.
I said thanks. I'm like, oh, thanks.
I know, but I was like, that was like a big hype up, and I feel like you just
No, I was
deflated
like,
it.
oh, I'm
You know,
embarrassed. You're putting
You're
it.
embarrassed.
Hi. You know I'm an ambivert.
Whatever the See, what does that mean? What is
Because
that?
both you're introverted and extroverted at the not the same time, but in different settings. So someone says I'm an introvert, but then they see me and they're like, "You're not an introvert." I'm like, "No, but I sometimes." So I'm an ambivert.
That is us, because we hide when we're like in
Thing.
normal public sessions. It's
Yeah.
very scary for me.
I don't
Like
like this at
ordering
all.
food at a restaurant is really hard. Okay.
My whole life, I've told my kids to make the order when they call in. I just don't want to call. I don't want to talk.
Yeah, okay, it's a thing.
But here I am
Okay.
talking to y'all like it's nothing. Anyway,
No, and then just one-on-one. It's just all right. Manny, I'm not gonna take up more of your time.
All right.
Before I check real quick, let me look at our schedule, because who's after you? Oh, that's me.
You.
Yeah, so you can, if you need more time, you can take it. Because we have a break after that. So you can roll in, I'll roll over. Mine's not that long, but I want to put kind of a warning out there. So yeah, go ahead, Manny. So I'll tell you when it's kind of time-ish, but know you have a little bit of wiggle room, okay?
keep an eye on it. Yeah, I don't know that I'll take up too much time. I like to be here and learn and listen just as much as I like to talk.
Yeah,
even
we can talk together too.
I love to talk.
I know.
Yeah. So I changed this because what's listed in the program about being the power and the idea of a hip hop constituency is the next iteration of what I'm going to talk to. I'm still developing it, and so I didn't want to like quite get into it and spill the beans just yet. So I'm going back to something that I talked about or I presented at Howard University last year at the first annual Hip Hop Studies Conference that they're doing there. I just went to the second annual one. Really dope what they're doing over there at Howard. So I'm in between projects, in between researches. So then this little talk I'm gonna give really is, I think, just sort of a North Star, right? For myself, for less for y'all. I think it's a little bit of preaching to the choir, but I always think that maybe someone's watching this who isn't totally as, inside baseball with, all of the stuff we're talking about, hip hop studies, the academic, the literature, the research, and they're just like curious. They're trying to find out what this is sort of about. And some of those are going to be within the culture, but are jaded as to where they think the culture is nowadays. They think that it's lost all sense of the things we're talking about here, and they need to be reminded, to be quite honest. And sometimes it's people outside of the culture. And so I put this idea together because I think it's something that, and again, this is unfinished as well, but it's ongoing. So I think it's okay. The idea of a multi-point plan for a sustainable future has to do with all the things we're talking about here. But one piece that I think is not touched upon enough is the idea of that hip hop constituency or hip hop community or members of hip hop's collective culture, or what do you want? What's what I'm looking for? Well, whatever, community, for lack of a better term, has some work to do to make sure that they don't contribute to the erasure or the denigration or the disabling of this culture and all of its greatness that we talk about in these conferences. So let me just start with a couple of opening positions. You'll see where I'm trying to go, and I'll get through this pretty quick, and then maybe we can chop some things up, or it'll just give some food for thought, or you could just be like, Manny, you're crazy. Hip hop culture's true gift to the world, I feel, is its unique set of characteristics that, if you utilize it with intention, authenticity, and purpose and love, can benefit humanity in ways that no other social, cultural, artistic, communal, political, or spiritual movement can. None. This, I think, is actually hip hop's meta purpose. It's not just to entertain, but to uplift humanity. And that very much includes saving kids, which is why I like this organization. I'm glad to be talking to y'all today. The more that people comprehend this meta purpose, I guess, that the more opportunities there will be to implement efforts that can use this gift for good. Next point, people are not connected to hip hop generally have a poor understanding of these aspects of the culture. And in fact, most don't see it as a culture at all. Again, this might be preaching to the choir. We know this. We deal with the outside world. They don't get it sometimes. Maybe somebody's watching that doesn't get it. So let me talk to them. But also people connected to hip hop. Like I said, they're just not as connected to the aspects of the culture that we talk about here. Sometimes have a limited understanding of these greater concepts. Their perspectives have been jaded or clouded by the over commercialization and the media narrative. TS was talking about this in her introduction, and something that I've studied well is the media representation of hip hop and how it's been portrayed to the world. So everyone gets this idea that hip hop doesn't do any of these things, right? I contend that too few are working to amplify hip hop's full potential, to fulfill its meta purpose, to uplift humanity. And without those efforts, we risk losing this gift, this unique gift that we all know and love so much. So through these observations and analysis of what I've learned from talking to quite a lot of folks, up to 100 episodes, by the way, of Hip Hop Could Save America. Great. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's a great podcast. 100 episodes, just hit it. I'm working to develop some guidelines, I guess, a collection of critiques that can lead to action items that we all can do, from deep hip hop heads to academics, from casual fans to those that are outside of the culture, to help protect this destiny, this prophecy of what hip hop is meant to do. And so I'm sharing some of these early coalescing of these thoughts. It's like Biggie said, I had to write me a manual, but I don't want to write a manual. I don't want to write a whole guideline list, because it's also a contradiction of what I talk about very often, which is that you can't put hip hop into a box. We can't criticize, multi-generations and say that it has to be this way. Can't be that way. We can't go cross elements and say it has to be this and not that. It defeats the organic nature of hip hop. So how do we wrestle with this to say we have to have some guidelines, but we can't have guidelines? So we're going to talk about that. Now, we all know the call and response lives in the multi-generational DNA of hip hop. This works better in person. For the uninitiated in the audience, it's very simple. Y'all can play along at home. When I say hip, y'all say so hip hop. There you go. You even unmuted. I love it. Now, the next one is rhetorical. You don't have to answer. When I say hip hop, what comes next? Because hip hop offers the world unique and powerful, innovative, and proven ways to improve lives and livelihoods in communities, not just through entertainment and its associated commerce or businesses, not just, but in fields including, like we talked about, education, science and technology, health and wellness, political and social justice. But it does it universally across any and all demographics, and perhaps most important, particularly among the communities from whence hip hop came. And most of us in this Zoom, we know this to be true. But the rest really need to understand this, because to best effectuate these intersectional innovations, it's important for legacy institutions and their gatekeeping stakeholders, funders, deans, parents, CEOs, loan officers to know this about hip hop. Now, those of y'all who have to deal with those types of folk, that's not often the case. We talked about getting grants early. Whoever grant applicant, whoever judges the grant, they don't get it. They don't understand. And that makes it difficult for us to do some of the work we're trying to do. So we can have a further discussion about the need for validation from these folks and these institutions. That's fair. And it's a whole nother talk. But I do feel that this knowledge gap represents something of an existential issue for hip hop culture. Y'all can stretch while I'm talking. It's fine. We'll stretch together. I see the chat. We can stretch while we listen. In 2015, I co-authored a research survey. I'm semi-academic. I got one foot. Y'all are all the smart people. I just kind of do this in-between thing where I'm, making it accessible to the regular world of not so smart people like y'all. But in 2015, I did do a research survey, and I co-authored it. Shouts to Dr. Joyce Sever, a clinical social psychologist who helped me with this, or I helped her with this, really, to be fair. But we sought to examine public perception of hip-hop. The first question was an open-ended one. And it basically said, when you think of hip hop, what first comes to mind? Okay. Out of 1,000 responses, many focused on music, a good amount on dance, but only 16 responses out of 1,000 alluded to anything cultural. Only 2 used the word culture. In contrast, 10 people used the word crap. So that tells you something. So now hip hop influenced academics, practitioners, nonprofit executives, activists. The work that y'all do is inspiring and motivating. But after speaking to so many of you on this, I don't know if you've ever heard this podcast called Hip Hop Could Save America, I recognize how important it is to amplify your work for several reasons. Number one, it's certainly not crap. Number two, y'all are busy doing the work and you often don't have the bandwidth to then go market the work that you're doing. And number three, you don't get the coverage that you deserve. When I interviewed Mozzie from Words, Beats, and Life, great organization up there in the DC area, Mazi Matafa, the executive director, said, and again, this is exemplary in an institution that you could find when talking about amplifying hip hop as a whole culture and the work they do in the community and the schools. He had to create his own publication. The organization had to create their own publication to highlight the work because despite all that work and funding and accolades and presence and impact, they don't get enough coverage. So those unenlightened about the breadth and depth of hip hop, they remain unenlightened. So while it's the goal to become those gatekeeping stakeholders, it'd be great if we actually worked in journalism or in ways that could disseminate this information. It's problematic that even that people don't even think of hip hop as a culture. And again, even hip hop's own, not y'all, but the people that are part of the same community that have been jaded. A more anecdotal case in point, Chuck Creekmur. Why did my voice do that? Chuck Creekmur, apparently going into puberty, and poverty, the job situation. I agree with you, Andrew. Chuck Creekmur is the CEO and editor-in-chief of allhiphop.com. At one point, he posted a question to his Facebook profile during the Hip Hop 50 celebrations. And he says, what would you like to see from hip hop's 50th celebrations? Fair question. The query was met with hundreds of responses, and a few lamented that many of the celebrations lack programming that includes hip-hop's full range of artistic elements. Fair point. All the, it was basically a rap, celebration of 50 years of rap and really not even 50 years. So that was fair. Most just reflected on some musical aspect of hip-hop, maybe a favorite artist that they'd want to see included in these celebrations or on stage at some of these events, or a desire to give flower to pioneers that have been traditionally left out of these celebrations. That's all fine. But when I posted on social media that I was returning to the fall, last fall with my podcast, Hip Hop Could Save America, I don't know if you've heard of it, one of my old friends responding to the title of this podcast said, depends on the era, right? That hip hop could save America. Depends on the era. I mean, this era, bruh. Like, it's in schools. Hip hop is helping kids engage and learn better. It's in mental health settings we just talked about here. It's helping them cope with life. It's in workshops. TS, you talked about this too. Workshops that are introducing young people to fields like computer programming at the Hip Hop Architecture Camp. Across the world, it's helping resolve conflict. Shouts to the folks at Next Level. It's past and present and future powers being celebrated at universities like Howard and Cornell and Harvard and places we'd never think of, like, I don't know, Utah. Tasha? Right. When it comes to hip hop, even hip hop heads default to music. So in an attempt to design a set of guidelines to help ensure the sustainability and growth of the culture, to me, this is a foundational issue. When fans of hip hop, practitioners of hip hop, members of hip hop culture themselves don't recognize the very depth of that culture, we have a problem. I could surmise on how we got here, but that's a whole nother talk. What I'm really trying to do is determine what needs to be done to counteract the circumstances and forces that have led us to this crisis point. And I believe there needs to be a campaign, like an actual literal campaign, and advocates that are solely dedicated to informing or reminding the general public about all the things that hip hop has to offer, even in places where there are good intentions. I'll give an example. If you were at the Howard, Andrew, government's part of it. If you were, are you reading my screen? Have you hacked me? If you were at the first Howard Hip Hop Studies Conference and you were at the opening comments, there was an aide to Congresswoman Sidney Kamlager Dove. She's a congresswoman from California. And her aide was there because we were in DC, right down the block from all the government things. And he was there telling us that the U.S. House of Representatives introduced a resolution recognizing August 11th, 2023 as the 50th anniversary of hip hop. Now, I think this is a good thing. You're symbolically, recognizing it's important for the nation to recognize this milestone. A resolution, a U.S. House resolution, is a document that's printed up and sponsored by a couple of Congress people, and people sign on to support it. And it gets signed into, it's not a law. It's like a proclamation. It's like a statement, right? But it was declaring August 11th, 2023 as the 50th anniversary of hip hop. Now, we could talk about whether we should assign a particular date to something that obviously didn't just big bang on that day, but that's another talk. We could do all these other talks, but it's fine. It's okay that we collectively decided that August 11th, 1973 is as good a birthday as any, and we'll celebrate that symbolically. Cool. United States House of Representatives, someone in the government, Andrew, said, hey, we should make this a proclamation. And they said, yes, let's do it. Now, early drafts focused primarily on the musical legacy. Their office reached out to some folks to make sure the draft was up to par, but they needed to be urged to include wording that would recognize, for example, people at this very conference, hip hop educators, as well as other brilliant professionals who integrate the culture in their practice, such as the aforementioned mental health providers. So now, in the record, part of the text reads, quote, whereas hip hop has evolved as a platform to advocate for social, political, and economic needs of all people, including environmental justice, education, healthcare, and voting rights. The words education and healthcare were not in the original draft. And I know this because I'm the one that put them in. And I was really proud of this because not just complaining, I was able to do something. I found a way to help the cause, right? I was one of the people that they asked to help, go over this this document. And I'm glad, I'm sure other people would have noted, whoever else they had, there's a bunch of, and I went to the Capitol Hill and I was at a press conference and they did it and Tupac's sister was there and, it was great. And they talked about it and we had a thing and, it was great. I was in the building, the dome building, the Capitol, that's what it's called. And it was cool. And I'm sure that someone else in the early drafts would have pointed out that salt and pepper is not spelled like Peppa Pig. I caught that too. But the point of this whole thing is that even though there was someone in government, Andrew, to your point, and well-intentioned and, well-meaning, they got some things wrong. They said initially in the original draft that the August 11th, 1973, they didn't mention Cindy Campbell, had to pop that in. I think they didn't, but I know what they said was that it was in their apartment at 1520 Sedgwick. And no, it was in the rec room even that little factual thing going into the official record of United States history that's going to last until the aliens take us out is that, that's not right. That's incorrect. And so that might have slipped through the cracks. There were some names that were mentioned because it was whereas hip hop had pioneering rappers such as bang, 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 pioneering DJs such as blah, 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 producers such as blah, 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 blah. And they listed a few, not all, but some. Oh, you can't do all, but, gave some flowers. But there are a couple of names in there. Let's just say that they might not be unaware of a certain degree of problematic nature of recognizing someone, yes, for their contributions, but also not necessarily representative of the culture as a whole. And that had to be pointed out to them also by me. So I won't say what name I got removed from the document because I'm not trying to start no trouble, but let's just say there has to be people in these positions that are, making those judgment calls with a really, to borrow the phrase of a horribly unfair and unbalanced media outlet, that were really fair and balanced. And so I was able to contribute to that. I'm watching the time. So again, I'm in a different position than the regular folk, quote unquote, out there in the world, just living their lives and not, being asked to do these things, but yet we can all do something as hip hop citizens. And so that's why I say it brings me to the major tenet of this project. On December 4th, 2014, in the wake of the police killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Questlove posted to his Instagram, I urge and challenge musicians and artists to push themselves to be a voice of the times we live in. I'm kind of sort of addressing the hip hop nation. We need new public enemies. Not saying every song's got to be like Fight the Power. I mean real stories and real narratives, songs with spirit in them, songs with solutions, songs with questions. My soul is aching, seriously, for just one or two songs to change the course. And he was, at the time, lamenting what a lot of folks that are hip-hop heads lament about hip-hop, that we don't have that kind of music anymore, that we don't have that kind of social activism oomph in hip-hop anymore. And they all agreed with him. Everyone agreed with Questlove. Yeah, Questlove, you're right. The problem was, between the time that Michael Brown was killed and the time that Questlove made that post, about 6 months, there were at least 6 or 8 songs by very prominent musicians that were directly speaking to that issue. I'm talking about Be Free by J. Cole. I'm talking about Don't Shoot by Diddy, The Game, and Rick Ross. I'm talking about New National Anthem by T.I., Early by Run the Jewels, Tell the Children by Tink, hip-hop affiliated, The People featuring De La Soul and Chuck D from the old Public Enemy. So on any given day at any given time, there's a plethora of digital lamentations like this, calling out hip hop for lacking something or some characteristic that a person might feel is missing, but usually in actuality isn't. So what I ask of hip hop citizens, I think we're all pretty good about this, but anyone listening, what if everyone who posted this kind of critique from internet randos to celebrities would comment just a little bit more, take a little extra time to include an example of someone that's doing it well? Questlove could have said, we need more songs like these. Because when someone like Questlove says that, it makes it seem like these don't exist. So I hate to call out Questlove because, we all love Questlove, but he said some things like that along the way, the Drake and Kendrick thing, we won't go into it, that give the impression to the certainly people outside of hip hop, but even amongst those within, that hip hop doesn't do these things anymore. That's harmful. So we have to counter that. And we have to do it with action. Small step to help change the narrative that everyone can do. After all, as the late President John F. Kennedy said in 1961, ask not what hip hop can do for you, but ask what you can do for hip hop. I don't know if you know that he said that as an actual quote. Maybe I'm paraphrasing. The point is, that's the true purpose of trying to establish like some ideas or some guidelines that hip hop's narrative is so often incomplete or misrepresented or actively being erased. We can talk about who's contributing to that. That's another talk. The point is that there are things that we can do to help create the future we wish to see. So again, in closing, why is this all important enough to warrant about putting together some guidelines or something? Like I said, can't have strict guidelines. It's not about like giving a 10 hip hop cultural preservation commandments. It's just putting the idea out there that these things aren't going to happen by themselves. I do the job journalistically. I do what I can. Y'all do the job in your places. But there are going to be people who are watching that are just turned on to these ideas of all these things that hip hop is doing. Like, I didn't know this. I didn't know this. Well, if you didn't know this, or you heard a name today, or you heard a presentation, or Yonkers, like so much great hip hop came out of Yonkers, or Many Faces had 100 episodes of talking to great people, like, or whatever Tasha's about to say next, like, and I learned something. Go run tell that. Go tell that to somebody. That's the simple answer. As I said in the beginning, hip hop is a culture that offers the world unique, powerful, innovative, and proven ways to improve lives, livelihoods, and communities, not just through entertainment and its associated commerce, but in fields including education, science and technology, health and wellness, politics and social justice, universally, across any and all demographics, but perhaps most important, the communities from whence hip-hop came, and most importantly, the young people in those communities, since we're talking about saving the kids. But we got 45-year-olds on Facebook arguing about Lil Durk instead of arguing about who's going to donate to save the kids, or who's going to take their kid to the hip-hop conference at Howard, or who's going to be at the next school board meeting. There are things that we can do where our hip hopness can be used for good, even though we're 40, 45, 50 years old. So I want a day when we can no longer walk into some institution or organization that we think could benefit from hip hop. And I want to say, I want to bring hip hop into this establishment. And the immediate response is, why would you want to, and this is a real answer, why would you want to bring in stuff that talks about bashing women's heads in? I said, that'd be bad. I want to bring in an innovative, inspiring, and uplifting cultural ethos that exudes creativity and self-expression, raises social and emotional intelligence, fosters collaboration and community, that's had positive contributions to myriad aspects of humanity, like education, science, technology, health and wellness, politics and social justice, the fine arts and spirituality, and in fact, provides a blueprint for a society where authenticity, integrity, and the content of one's character are actually the things that matter. A movement that excels at forming community, connecting cultures, redirecting and resolving conflict, examining and countering social injustice that was forcibly relegated into the kind of role that you believe it to have only when it became clear that that community could also become constituency. It's a genre of music, a collection of art forms, a culture, a mindset, shouts to Dr. Toby Jenkins. It's a lifestyle, an ethos. Hip-hop is the only social movement that, while there may be individual objections based on personal biases, still collectively welcomes people from all walks of life, crossing all borders and differences in race, ethnicity, class, religion, even ideology, and literally is one of the most unifying forces that humanity has ever seen. But okay, let's whitewash and whittle all that down to someone bashing someone's head in. Go off. So again, I'm not advocating for hip hop to beg to be seen by people like this. Just like with racism and oppression, as Assata Shakur said, nobody in history has ever gotten their freedom by appealing to the moral sense of the people who are oppressing them. So I'm not suggesting that we should keep asking for permission to be allowed into these traditional bastions of higher society. But no, as Dr. King said, freedom must be demanded by the oppressed. I believe that the hip hop spirit represents the true freedom. And so we must demand to be at the tables of power and hold those who would deny us that power to account. I'm hoping that once these ideas are fully fleshed out, that these guidelines, these recommendations can help make all of these things happen. So I'm going to work on these principles. I'm happy to receive feedback and critique or praise, especially praise. It's my favorite. And I will be updating this work and fielding comments mainly through my Substack, which is the Hip Hop Can Save America newsletter at mannyfaces.substack.com, because I believe that retaking control of the narrative of hip hop's true calling will allow us to all help engineer the takeovers necessary to bring this blessed cultural movement into places where it can truly enact widespread positive change on society. I believe this to be a vital, worthy mission that must be the primary focus of hip hop as a whole, as we move farther away from the jubilation and celebrations of Hip Hop 50 and start to work on hip hop's next 50. That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, so did you really just make that presentation recently?
No,
Was that off the top of your head?
No.
That was amazing, Manny.
Thank you. No, it's been around for a while, but it's rarely used. So y'all got like a almost exclusive.
Well, we appreciate that. Almost
Andrew
exclusive.
says it is my thoughts before us. That's exactly right. Anyway, I hope, like I said, it's preaching to the choir. We all know these things, you know, but you know, sometimes we need to just, I don't know, I need to be reminded. So I write these things for myself as much as anybody else. I do the newsletter and I talk to the folks like y'all, and y'all are all welcome. If I haven't had you on the show, you know, don't blame my scatterbrain. Don't blame my heart. Blame the fact that I'm one guy doing 100 episodes and presentations by myself. But we need to be reminded, and we need to, you know, let other folks know that they got work to do, man. We can't do this by ourselves. Y'all got to contribute to this effort. And if you do, then, you know, all these great things can happen.
And even though we know these things, it's helpful to hear it articulated in different ways, because you articulated some things that I have trouble articulating before. So I appreciate that. It's like a dope verse that you have to listen to like 9-10 times. Like I need to go rewind that and like take it in, you know?
I feel you. Some entendres in there.
Yes.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I know I'm running up on time. Thank you for a little bit of grace. You know, my only takeaway is that if any of that resonated with you, it's literally not me. I get inspired by the folks that I talk to. Like I said, there's a book coming out, which is just an extension of the podcast. Just, you know, if you're not a podcast person, we're on video, I'm on internet, you know, what's that thing called? YouTube now. And just as much as I'm awesome, the people that I talk to are the real inspiration. They do the work day in and day out. I do a good job of relaying what I've learned from them and being the expert of experts, you know what I mean? Like kind of holistically, but please take time to find someone that's doing this work that you're directly connected with. They've been on the show. You know, like I said, just the names that we just mentioned 8 mental health professionals. I can give you 12 educators, 3, you know, hip hop theater folk, you know, and a partridge in a pear tree. So you can find the area that you're archiving, you know what I mean? And if I haven't had them on my show, I know who they are. So you can always reach out to me and say, hey, listen, I'm doing work in this field. Who can I talk to? I know Tasha, you know, we offer these resources to people through the nonprofit. But also just personally, just reach out and hit me up and say, who can I talk to, man? Because I know you know all these folk. And then I'll point you to either an episode we did or someone else or something they wrote. It's just important for us to share information amongst ourselves. And again, there's something to be said for getting it out to the general public. They don't believe y'all. We need more people. So, you know what I mean? That's the work. So thanks for your time.
Anytime.
Any faces? You sick for this one.
I get paid every time I play it. It's not true. That's not true.
Yourself?
No one pays me anything.
I know. Sorry.
I see we have one hand up. Do we want to get that?
Oh, yes, please.
question
Go
in
ahead.
real quick. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. I'm studying the sustainability of hip hop in higher ed, so the dance from the dance perspective. So we're right in line when we're thinking about sustainability. I think that should be. My question would be, and just the topics of listening was, you talked about the evolution of hip hop, and I think so far from my study, the what is hip hop and the disconnect between, and I think I heard Dr. Jayal talk about a little bit about that, and then also Reese had talked a little bit about it earlier about the disconnect between the new and the old, and how that has to do with sustainability. I wanted to throw out there, from a dance perspective, our organization has worked towards creating frameworks. And this has really been, you know, when you're trying to do that in our scene, at least I can only speak from my dance scene in hip hop, that could be really difficult and challenging because we are mixing the old and new. What we found through the work is that there are common things that we all agree on. And if we could focus on the things that we do agree on and for right now, we don't have to talk about the things we don't agree on. We're just focusing on the things we do agree on. Yeah. We have been able to build really great frameworks for educating in dance and for coaching in dance or whatever, mentoring in dance. And so that has been a strategy that we're continuing to do in order to have these frameworks that everyone can use and share and communicate. And it's growth, because a lot of times when we're trying to really get in the work of these changes, when we use words like sustainability, it could just be dropped and there's no actual like action thing that's happening. Is anyone really going to use our framework? And so we need to be able to figure out what the buy-in is there. And I think that that's been very helpful. But it takes guidance. You know, we don't know what we don't know. So we need to bring in people that know outside of our community, unfortunately, to help guide us in our community when we have people who've looked in the mirror and actually said, oh, it's me, I'm doing it. I'm doing it, you know, and to be,
and they don't know that they can do it here. They don't know that they can do it with us. And we don't know that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been really cool because now, because we're so adaptable as hip hop people, we're all like multifaceted, we're all connected in different ways. Sometimes we don't, you really utilize those networks to build ourselves in. But I just wanted to add in there that sustainability is important. I think from what I'm looking at in my research, studying hip hop professors at universities right now, that disconnect for sustainability, the huge thing that you mentioned, I think TS, in the sense of mainstream legitimacy, I think that's a huge problem. And it stems and it goes through all the realms. It's legitimacy. So regardless if you're an entrepreneur, business, education, organization, any type of situation, you're going to deal with the legitimacy of it. As I'm looking at solutions, because in my program, I have to create change. It's an organizational change and leadership. And so when we're looking at solutions, we're looking at implementing that legitimacy problem. For hip hop dance professors in higher ed, we're finding that there's no pathway. I have this essence that there probably isn't a created pathway, right? Because hip hop is creating new pathways. And so how do we combine the systems that we have that say you need master's degrees and this and that to teach, you know? My last story would be the reason I got into this higher ed dance thing as a B girl who did not have a dance degree from a school or anything was because my first breaking class that I decided to teach in 2011 asked me for a certificate. And I said, there's no certificate for what I do. There isn't one. And so the director said, go home and make one and bring it back. Now I did, because that's how hip hop I was. And my sister signed it and I made a certificate and I turned it in and I started considering myself a dance teacher and I started teaching dance. And so we have to be able to have an advocate. When we're thinking about sustainability, we have to have a plan, we have to have a network, and then the work continues to evolve. And I think that as we're looking, you know, it was interesting what you said, and that really in dance, we have a lot of OGs that are trying to stay relevant. And it doesn't mean that I'm trying to erase your contribution, yo. I'm just trying to grow for the future. So yes, please put your name on here. Thank you. But
Yeah.
if you're not contributing to where everyone is trying to go to, and I'm now in the middle of it, right? Because the future exists right now. Those youngins, they're existing, and we have to listen to them where it's going. At least in dance, we do. And then we can guide them, and then we can evolve, right? If we continue to be in this hip hop culture avenue. So yeah, those are just a few thoughts from what you said. I want to definitely connect more about sustainability in my background in organization. And so I would love to see what your can't wait till your book comes out and all that. So thanks.
I got a few things cooking, and I'd welcome that. Tasha and I talk all the time. I'm sure a lot of us do, about the need for practitioners to be able to be in these spaces. All that, I said, I don't got a degree. I can't get a teaching job, but I'd be pretty good at it probably. You know what I mean? But like, dang, they're not even gonna see me. So, and that's, forget me, like everyone else that has this great, what Ben Ortiz, a guy at Cornell says, organic intellectuals, and they don't get, doesn't get the same props. There's so much you said that we could talk about. I know we got to go on to other things. I appreciate that. I know everyone does.
Well, we can infiltrate the system. So,
yes,
for
absolutely,
instance,
100%. And I want to say one thing, like, just one for everyone else, that common ground thing you mentioned, like of all the people that I talk to, that's a great recurring theme. And just, give me 20 seconds, Tasha. It's Dr. Kelly, Lauren Kelly from Rutgers, told the story that like sits at the beginning of the beginning and the alpha and omega, this whole idea. She goes, she's doing lyric analysis with the kids, and she's trying to talk to them, high school, I believe. And she's trying to get to like social, cultural, issues and theories through the music. And they're like, well, what song is popular at the time? It was 2 Chainz' birthday song. And when all he wants for his birthday is a big booty. Oh, and so they're going over, the song is popular, and she's like, I don't know about this. Like, you got to hear this song. She's like, birthday song? I don't know that song. And she's, oh, this song. So she plays the song, and they look at it, they're analyzing it, they're watching the video with all these women face. You don't see their bodies, and there's a woman's body in the shape of a cake, or a cake in the shape of a woman's body. It's all this, wild, misogynistic and all the things. She goes, I'm not really comfortable with this. And she goes to them, she goes, why do you like this? What is wrong with you? And like, no, we like it. It's just, it's cool. It's fun. It's like, no. She goes, is this what you aspire to? Like, no. We can relate to it. They're like, this is what your life looks like. They're like, no. She goes, this is what you want your birthday to look like? They're like, no, we don't want this. We just want the power to have this if this is what we wanted. And I said, oh, shoot. Okay. And she says what I'm thinking is like the gravitation to the materialism and the misogyny. It's shrouded in that, it's covered in that, but it really just speaks to their sense of powerlessness, that they can't. And they said it. It's not like we're putting it on. Like maybe they don't want the breastises. Maybe they just want power. No, they actually said it themselves, and that gave me just such a. And so when we look at that common ground, even stuff we disagree with, there's still some gems and lessons that we could find. And so I've learned that lesson, and I preach that gospel as much as possible. And I think that's the perfect way to look at it when we talk about these generational, because I'll give you 20 more examples, not now, but I can give you 20 more examples of where we've seen success. All the mental health professionals, they'll tell you that's how they do it. They meet them halfway. They meet them where they are, and it makes all the difference in the world. So if we're just sitting here talking about back in my day, then come on, man, you're not really trying. That's it. Peace. I'm out.
Well, there was a huge thing for dance teachers. So if we have breaking teachers, hip hop dance, street dance teachers, urban dancers, whoever that goes under cultural dance, how do we quantify for them to teach? So there was in Colorado, when I was just left in Colorado, working with the school districts to what do we need to do to quantify their PhD and experience? What does that look like? How can you create what the requirements are, and how can we adapt? And then how can we utilize that? Yep. And so being able to do that so that a teacher can teach the dance in, K-12 or higher ed, are there fast track programs in higher ed to support those PhDs and experience? There are a few, but those kind of program is what I'm talking about. Like, we need to be able to understand what the systems look like. How can we advocate for our community in order to build sustainability? And then also, we have some really great I think one of the things is, yeah, they're an incredible dance teacher, but they don't know the administration of working in a school system. They
Right.
don't know the administration of working. So how can I provide professional development to help them become great teachers and understand the system, because it gets overwhelming. A lot of them are the only ones. There's a few tenured tracks. What are we really looking at what the future is, and then listening to everybody. But yeah, we can go all day long. So it sounds like Tasha and Manny, we need to link up soon.
Anytime.
And this is going to blend right into my presentation.
I was about to say, this segues nicely, doesn't it? I think, based on the title, I don't know.
Yeah. So, hey, so keep that energy right now because it's very short. It's just meant to kind of give you an alert, and then we can continue this discussion right after, because if you need to stretch, you can, but I think we might just go right through, Tony. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to get to this. I'm going to share this because this is actually, yeah, right in line with what we're all kind of working on and looking at here. I'm not gonna make my PowerPoint bigger. No, I will. I'll do it because I need to show you this. Okay. All right. So again, welcome. Hello. Hi. I'm Dr. Iglesias. Nice to meet you. Just Tasha, unless you're gonna give me a promotion or money. Thank y'all. So you're probably wondering, you're like, okay, Utah State, that's really random. I am not from Utah, y'all. I am from Southern California. So I just moved here a few years ago. It's really actually been an interesting perspective to kind of leave spaces where hip hop was readily accepted in curriculum. They're actually a lot more accepting in Utah, which is really strange. They're like, yeah, we love it. I don't know about now. We'll talk about that. But I'm an educational leader, I guess I would say. It's where my doctorate lies. So I'm always looking at kind of systems. And so this is what I want us to look at. This is a preliminary list, y'all. I'm still kind of adding to this list. What I'm gonna need to look at as well, and kind of circle back on, is how was enrollment for these programs? Are they still in existence? How often are they offered? How is this actually impacting young people in higher ed? But there's also things that we need to be a little concerned about. So let's go through this real quick. So I put 1990s with an asterisk because UCLA has been doing some programming and research for decades now. If you do not know Dr. Sammy Lim, I think, Manny, you just got to meet Sammy, right?
Yeah, for the first time. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's at Howard.
Amazing.
Good guy.
They'll have Chuck D coming in as a artist in residence, which makes all the sense now with Harry emailing me 2 years ago. Okay. I'm like, why are you asking these things? Okay. So basically, UCLA would be one of the programs along with Howard University that is intermittently, and I'm going to say that it's intermittently. This is not consistent conferences, symposium, courses, programming offered. It's like very sporadic. There's not anything that I have seen, and obviously I need to do more research in this, of any program in any university anywhere in the world that has had what you're talking about, sustainability, okay, or assessments or increased enrollment. So you'll see some of these programs as we evolve over time. 2007. Oh wait, sorry. So Howard University, obviously having the conferences, symposia. You'll notice we did not have our conference this year, and I think part of that was to not, we were asked to not compete with some of the conferences. I was like, bet, not a problem, because I'm okay. There's some great conferences that were put on this year that we need people to get to. But they've been doing it since the 1990s. It's a little bit around, you see 1983 is probably the first thesis, around 1980s, on hip hop, as well as in Europe. So you have Europe, and then out in the United States, people starting to study hip hop. You won't see kind of first published content outside of magazine articles, which is why I'm like always, I was reading through, and this is how I came across it with Harry Allen. I'm like, oh, finally someone's standing up like to what these journalists are saying. And it was Harry Allen in his magazine. They're like rebuttals to what was happening. So you wouldn't see kind of scholarly publications until early mid 1990s. And those, again, are specific to rap. So during these 1990s, early 2000s, and I would even compete and argue now still rap centric, right? 2007, University of Wisconsin-Madison, they have a spoken word kind of learning community, which I'm actually really fascinated with. 2009, they'll have the first nationally accredited diploma program for hip hop. This was introduced a little bit later after this college had opened up. But you'll see, I put it in brackets because this is what I'm kind of being a little concerned about. College closes in 2017. So you'll see some of these programs being tied to grant funding to certain political initiatives at the time, but not staying, right? Not being offered for maybe past 2-3 years. 2012, NYU hip hop culture course, Getting Real, the Hip Hop Education Center, University of Arizona. And I want you to kind of also pay attention if I list it, where these programs are being housed. African studies, it'll be music, dance, theater. So a lot of them lying in there. Harvard University begins offering the Nasir, we can't talk today, Jones Hip Hop Fellowship 2013 also in Tiffin University, Ohio, music performance degree. Again, focus on emceeing and beat making. So a lot of this, again, still music, rap centric. 2020 is, I don't know when this program started. If anyone knows this, that would be awesome. The Hip Hop Studies certificate at the University of Colorado Boulder, 2021. So this is now recent. You're starting to see certs, minors, degree programs starting to be offered towards the later part of the 2020s, or no, mid part. We're not even there, y'all. We're in 2024. Okay, 2021, Amherst Hip Hop History. Again, another one being housed in Department of Fine and Performing Arts, Bowie State. Is that how we say that? I don't know. So again, visual, music, kind of interdisciplinary minor. There's a certificate of business in hip hop innovation. I have all kinds of concerns about this, but we'll talk about that later. About career technical programs on like DJing and rap performance and how that leads to professions, or like what do you do with that degree too? That's a whole nother conversation we'll have in a minute. 2023, London College of Music offers a bachelor's degree. So now you're seeing in the 2023s, this is recently as of last year, you're going to start seeing even more possibly coming out now. So Johns Hopkins, Bachelor of Music, Bachelor of Science out of Loyola, Columbia, Hip Hop Studies minor, North Carolina Central University, Hip Hop concentration, Virginia State University, I think-ish around 2022, not sure as well. So again, y'all, if you have these dates, it's great. Institute of Hip Hop and Cultural Studies, and we see another course coming out. And then in the Department of Education, looking at arts, media, and entertainment, career technical programs being offered. So here's the issue, and I'm going to look at the chat real quick. Good. Okay, good. Problem is, for anyone that is looking at, we're having, this is a triumph. This is a positive thing coming out of hip hop, is seeing these degree programs. But this was also during an era of heavy funding and initiatives under DEI. So initiatives. So we're going to look at that in a second. There's a major attack. But first, we got to talk about is declining enrollment. Utah State saw an increase in enrollment. It's because I'm here. No. Nationally, we are seeing a decrease in enrollment. There's multiple reasons for this. Obviously, economic, financial issues, access issues. And what we're seeing a lot around the nation currently in this political climate is the lack of value in a college education. The reality is they're going to need a college degree, but I don't know how that's going to change now as we go in the future. It's very, very unknown to me. But we do know student enrollment is declining nationwide. Obviously, that is having an impact on colleges, and we are also seeing a decline or increase in college closures across the nation, especially smaller institutions, private institutions, people that cannot handle this lack of enrollment. This is AI generated, y'all. Which, hey, have fun with AI for this stuff. So I'm trying to figure out, so this is a problem. We went through the list, right? We're like, okay, hip hop is coming out. We're having degree programs, minors, certs. I don't know if there's any consistency about how those are being assessed and evaluated, how research and data inform these degrees, what the outcomes are, what that will lead to, how it will help students in interdisciplinary majors. I don't know. There's still a lot of research that will have to be done on these programs. Part of my research as well is trying to understand what's making hip hop pedagogy a unique pedagogical tool or method. So that's also been a rabbit hole. But the problem is we have decline in enrollment. We now have college closures. If you have a decline in enrollment, the colleges are going to respond by cutting programs. And you'll see kind of a pattern here. These are just a few of them recently in 2024. Okay, so this should be a red flag alarm for anyone that wants to do programmatic stuff, courses, curriculum development, introduce new majors in higher ed. We have a huge problem we're going to experience here real soon. University of Connecticut, again, decline in enrollment, what they're cutting, and you'll see it. Art, philosophy, music, social work. Where's hip hop housed? Okay. East Asian students, German. So you're seeing cultural programs that are attached, related to cultures are being cut. Okay, those again, where hip hop is being housed. Baldwin Wallace, 10 academic programs, music history, jazz, visual studio art, communication studies, film studies, public relations, public health, leadership, St. Cloud, 56 degree programs, criminal justice, economics, gender and women's studies, Spanish, sociology. You get it, you can see it. So we have to be prepared for this because I think what happened is, and what I'm seeing is that there's a lot of confidence in these new programs that are being introduced. You don't have the students, you don't have students graduating, we don't have the data, you don't have the funding, and now you have legislation that is actually being proposed across the nation to attack your discipline. And a lot of us are like, well, it's hip hop, it's all over the place. Not according to people that are introducing this legislation. Hip hop does exactly what they don't want being taught in the classroom. It's addressing discrimination, racism, sexism. It's talking about governmental corruption, all the things that are being banned content-wise from libraries, from the curriculum, from programs are embedded in this DEI legislation. So this came about, there was a spur. They were prepared for this, y'all, because they have the language and are using kind of cookie cutter language across the states. So if you are in any of these states, y'all, you can see Utah, we have it. It is in effect. It is dismantled programs across the state. But you can see almost every state has it ready to go. It's either in effect, pending, or going to be introduced. This is an initiative by the next administration. So this started after the US Supreme Court case 2023, where they were looking at race-based admissions. So this kind of affirmative action kind of pushback. Since 2023 ruling, more than 85 anti-DEI bills have been proposed in 28 states, with 14 becoming law. Anyone that follows politics, that is highly successful and incredibly quick to get that much legislation passed. So where is this anti-DEI legislation going to hit us, right? Cultural centers. Again, most of our hip hop programming in K through 12 and higher ed are both funded and housed in cultural centers. those will be the first to be chopped. As an example, in Utah, they have shifted departments, reallocated staff, cut out programming, and services completely in certain departments. So it looks like them reallocating funding, not allowing new additional funding that would be in violation. So now our research shouldn't be touched, but the funding we go for, the grants that we go for, the curriculum we introduce, all of this will now have to be screened. This is all the way from pre-K up. Universities have disbanded DEI offices. Again, this is an initiative of the new U.S. Department of Education once they get onboarded here. So this is coming. So what I would say to people, it's sad because you have this balance of trying to keep yourself from self-censorship, but understanding that the DEI language that we've been using that has been highly effective, that really was pushing us towards a direction that would have embraced hip hop, will now be seen and responded to as out of compliance, in some states illegal, or shunned by at least half the population, at least, if not more. We already had an issue with trying to launch DEI and for it to be impactful. And before you could even get your ground and footing, it's slashed. So if you are thinking about, well, I'm going to push the DEI initiative, or I'm going to come under the guise of like, this is important because it adheres to DEI, just know that that's now going to be an argument you cannot use. So when I say embed it, incorporate it in other disciplines, this is why we have to have this on our radar, because our systems of support, our funding, our allies are now being taken off the table. Okay. And that sounds scary and horrible, but it's the reality. It's they're saying it. This is their initiative. This is what is happening. And I think sometimes we think it's like, it's not going to happen to us. Curriculum in higher ed, we have a lot more freedom for higher ed because we have academic freedom as professors. So we have the flexibility to do this. But the professors around the nation, obviously, there are a lot of them being pushed out of the system, fired, let go. Their programs are being dismantled. So everything's kind of pointing towards, if you come and introduce this type of curriculum, you are therefore going against the institutional culture and are out of compliance, even though you have academic freedom and are protected, right? There's still that stigma, that pressure. K through 12 is who's going to have a lot more of an issue with curriculum now. So I know that they have spent years, right? These are in the museums. I've helped with doing the history and the timelines with the Department of Education early on, helping to try to figure out, well, what would hip hop look like, and the importance of incorporating the culture rather than just being a music production cert. All of that now is in jeopardy in the K through 12 system. I can tell you now, if they are banning things that I've heard about that have nothing close to how harsh and critical hip hop can be, I don't see how school districts are going to be allowed in the short term until this is fought. ACLU is one of the ones that's heading up this fight. Until we can fight back. So understanding, like earlier we were talking about, Andrew was talking about the music and like meditation and you know, the cultural aspects of the drums. Now they'll be like, but why do you have to talk about that? Like, why do you have to talk about different cultures? And why does it have to be someone else's culture's drum? Why can't we talk about American drums? You know what I mean? So you have to become prepared with the verbiage as to why hip hop pedagogy and praxis should be incorporated in different fields in a way where I'm just saying, safeguard your language, if that makes sense. Write it in a way where it's not going to get flagged. Or if you're going to do it and do it unapologetically, have some research and data and some people, get your network in and your allies in to support you. Hiring. So this is where I think about it. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna get a degree in hip hop. And then what do I do with that? As a professor, if you look at any of the tenure track job descriptions, they will not list that. And that will probably not be listed for a very long time. And if your fields are getting cut, you now have a degree and you can't even use it in different fields because there's nowhere to teach it. There's no spaces. There's no sustainability. We're all doing this volunteer wise right now. So I have to be clear with people like that because they see me travel around, you know, the country and the world. I'm like, I'm not traveling like on my dime. I'm usually doing another project and tag along hip hop with it. So I'm like doing a work project, an election or something, and I get to do hip hop something on my own free time. And that's why I'm there. The reality of it is and Manny and y'all can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm like, I've yet to meet like a DJ that only DJs and that's like what his job is, or a rapper. They mostly have side hustles. There's other ways of generating revenue because you can't just depend on this, right? So again, hiring is going to be an issue. A lot of faculty that got brought into these programs, and I hate using the terminology as a DEI hire, but there were specific intentions in bringing in faculty from marginalized communities that were talking about different cultures that weren't represented in academia, and an intentional hiring process, job descriptions being created to bring these people in because we were being excluded from those spaces, right? You were just talking about that. Now those initiatives are going to be made illegal, or they're not going to be funded, or just out of compliance with policy and procedure. DEI trainings banned. I know a lot of organizations were trying to go towards that for using hip hop in an effort for like CEUs, continuing education units, or professional development. Now that will be cut. Your ability to do rap, lyrical analysis in the course is going to be impacted by this legislation. So I will stop sharing now. I'll open it up. I just wanted to take a moment because I was like, failures and negatives, those are some of the things. I'm like, I was so excited that we had programming, and then now what I'm seeing are some major obstacles and barriers, and I don't think we're ahead of it at all. So what we'll be doing, and I'll let it go to conversation, is getting ahead of it. So go ahead, Manny. Anyone else?
I was just gonna say this wasn't depressing at all.
Okay, that's good.
No, I'm so glad you brought up, with such clarity, exactly what's happening. And obviously, if the general public, many of which would approve of us doing what we do and would love it and rail for it and champion it, don't realize the ramifications of what might happen on the political sphere. And you blended those worlds, as you do, because you're in those worlds so well. And it's part of the messaging that I talk about when it's like, hey, you got to tell the hip hop citizens all the good things hip hop are doing. We also have to tell the same citizens, like, this is what's going to happen. It's what we're going to lose, when these things come into play. So it's all, it is depressing, but it's also very important that we touch upon it and not be afraid to speak on it. So I thank you for doing it so well.
Just did it today, so you're welcome. Yeah,
Light
I
work.
know. I mean, I think about it all the time.
Right. I get it. Yeah. No,
but I'm like, dude.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say, like, and I'll say quickly, it's why I said this a little bit in my thing. The institutions, the traditional, the legacy institutions, like getting in there and being in there is great. Like, we need that, but we also don't, and that we have to find ways to remember. Hip hop came from not being let into the traditional spaces. Hip hop couldn't be on the radio in New York City in the 80s, except it was only on the radio from Friday night at 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. on Kiss FM and WBLS. Like, they didn't even want it on the radio. We're like, all right, so we'll just be on college radio. Oh, you can't make it. We're not gonna give you a record deal. All right, we're just gonna make mixtapes. Like, so when the institutions rock with us, then we'll use their research. But when they don't, we have to find ways around that. So part of this is also like, how can we do the things that we want to do in these academic institutions at least for the next 4 years, outside of
Yeah.
these academic institutions. So, you know, and again, we're all nonprofits, but they're not going to be funded as well. So where can we do some of these things that aren't relying on those institutions, but also find ways to get the political atmosphere changed so that we can get back in those institutions? It's a dilemma, I'd say.
Super dilemma. Andrew's biting at it. Go ahead, Andrew.
No, my problem is just all the traditional elitist stuff. Like, I'm a music teacher, and last year there was an issue, if you didn't know, in a NYSSMA conference where they said how to teach harp in your hood school. And this was a guy from Long Island, had no experience with hip hop, trying to make it seem like, oh, I'm relating. And people, like I said, I'm never going back. And then the worst part is when he tried to apologize, he made it seem like he was the victim. Like, is it my fault that blah, 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 blah? I know. I'm like, stop. And even this year, they had one, and I've told Manny about this, but it was called General Interest / Urban Schools. That's the first thing. It said urban schools for the hip hop. It doesn't have to just be taught in urban schools. And the person that was running it has no affiliation to hip hop. They're the urban chairperson for NYSSMA, but they had no idea, because I know we applied for it, and I know that I've tried to talk to them about it, and they just want to stick in their ways in a sense.
So remember, Andrew, what I said before, like that the general hip hop citizenry needs to know these things, and that's why we do what we do, and we tell them, because when they write 30 emails to the CEO of NYSSMA, that, you know, and we get on their case and we do that like old fashioned grassroots bitching and complaining, then we can get that corrected. But if we're not, and if we're just sitting there, you know, talking about, you know, complaining it, or you don't do what you just did and spread the word, you know, we'll lose that too. And then when all the things that Tasha talks about happen, like, we have no recourse. So, you know, there's work to do. When we see these egregious errors, get up in their
There's even a thing recently.
They won't curse, but
hold on. I'm gonna let
the first word I could think
Dr.
of.
Adolf go, because he's waiting so patiently. But yes, we gosh, I swear, we have like the weirdest lines in our hip hop conferences, and they're just so great. Okay, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with what Manny was saying earlier. I mean, when we talk about the very essence and birth of hip hop, it comes out of that deindustrialization. It comes out of the Reaganomics era and that sort of thing. And so what it will mean is that it may be a positive space in some regards, because maybe it can help shake up some things, and maybe artists who are like relying on the mainstream materialism will realize that it's a death of the culture, and it could be a renaissance, a rebirth, and that sort of thing. I mean, jazz has gone through this, blues has gone through this, and that sort of thing. So I still believe it'll happen. And lastly, I just want to say, at least from, African Americans' perspective, historically, this country at one time banned our ability to be able to read and that sort of thing. And how we were able to overcome that was the secret societies of each one teach one. And so whether it be it may not be the church, it may be the spoken word community, it may be the ciphers in the parks again, but the word is going to get out to the people, because the voiceless are not really ever voiceless. It's just that mainstream refused to hear them. So we'll still have it, so, it's disappointing, but as a professor who used hip hop, and I'm an English professor, and I use hip hop, therapeutic writing and that sort of thing into my works, I'll still find a way to mask it, even if they, say, oh, okay, well, you can't do it this way. Give them a fake syllabus and do what you need to do. So, it's about
and like I said, I'm like, professors are protected by academic freedom, but I think we're going to have to lean on each other to be like, this is how I'm doing it. This is how I'm protecting it. Because, even if you have academic freedom, like, I'm adjunct, so they don't need a reason, right? So that's very scary for a lot of us. And then we're, as professors, going to have to support, but I still have a lot of rights and a lot of power, right? So I'm like, well, then I can be in these spaces and talk about it. I can help my K through 12 colleagues out. I can offer community workshops so students can go and at least still get this education, but in a different space. And like you said, which is really, really important, I think hip hop is full of resistant capital. We are known for shifting, adapting, and not having to rely on someone to look out for us, really, because we've just been burned. And I think what we need to do if we're talking about and I've heard this come up a few times with the hip hop renaissance in different spaces, is realize that we can do it on our own. Like, we don't need systems. There's enough of us around the world to run this on but it's a matter of us working together. That fun tenet, coalition.
Yeah. Like President Kennedy said. Like President Kennedy said, ask not what your hip hop can do for you. It's what you can do for hip hop.
Yeah.
And the thing,
Totally said that.
And I think places, I mean, we have platforms like Udemy and Skillshare and stuff like that. This kind of showed us a blueprint in which even if we just do our own thing and just have like, you know, if it's podcasts like Manny has and that sort of thing, it's going to be spaces where you can have it. And I think we as academics also have to think outside the box. I think the only thing the university offers are the four walls, but everything else is what we bring to the table. But I think a lot of times, because of the intellectual violence that takes place in getting these degrees, they make us feel as if we have to be beholden to the industry. And really, we are the things that make it happen. I try to tell my students all the time, we have transferable skills. We do not have to stay in the classroom and that sort of thing, or just use the classroom to pay your health care, but then do what you do on the side academic side hustles. So, you know, we'll find a way to make that happen. But I really do love the fact that you have documented the history of academia and hip hop and academia, because for so long, I feel like the sentiment has always been that, you know, hip hop is anti-intellectual, when, you know, even in the tenets of the culture itself, it was always that element of knowledge that many people didn't acknowledge. So, you know, but that's dope, like a really dope presentation.
Thank you. That's my element, because I'm not creative in any way at all. Yeah. I like to read. That was a hard part too for like scholars. And I keep saying this because Manny and I our org's going to launch the Scholars of Hip Hop, and it is about bringing people together and training them, basically professional development, supporting each other because we need it. Grant writing, how do we get funding? Like, just bring people in to help us and connect us. But I think the reality of it is that we work in silos. We fight against each other. We compete, which why I said this year, I'm like, we didn't do a conference because there's great conferences. We don't, our org, you know, I'm like, let's get to those ones, right? Like they did it, let's get there. But finding a way to work together, use our skill sets. We have some quant data people here now. It just makes my whole life complete. Yeah, enrollment in public schools dropping a little bit, kind of nationwide though. Students of color are progressing. So graduation rates are actually going up, and graduation rates for the entire group are actually going up. But
yeah, but it's something but I want to say, with that optimism and those numbers, it's a little bit of inflation in there too, because of the fact we don't fail anyone either. And here's the thing.
K through 12. Yeah. And the pandemic impacted those graduation rates and people's ability to pass through.
Right. The downward grade curve, you know, grading on a curve direction.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also, you know, so yeah, you have the downward, and also the biggest thing that I would say is even scarier is the fact that we stopped teaching students how to read after early elementary school. So now when you're talking about Ivy League students that are going in, and you know, they have, these kids haven't even read a full novel. and that sort of thing. So one of the things that this is why I think hip hop will still, have relevance and that sort of thing, because the ciphers may be the only spaces where this knowledge can be kept, because they're not really providing the kids with books and that sort of thing. So it's going to be up to us to really kind of read and put and use that in our lyricism. And when I say lyricism, in the way that we teach and in our classroom, because we, in a sense, as educators, are performers just as much. And so how do we make this information relevant? How do we add our little griot and swag to it? And that's what we're going to do. And I love the fact that you all are doing that professional development, because the thing is, hip hop is all about, really, in many cases, borrow from sermonic discourse. How did the preacher do this? And so that same sort of thing is what I'm a part of and trying to do as well. So, like I said, anyway that I can support, what you all are doing, and that's
we need it.
I'll do what I can do as well.
We're gonna need it.
Yeah, please, JL, please just plug your work real quick, since you're doing all this talking. You might as well.
I know. I'm like, wait, we're
Just
gonna,
plug your
yeah,
work. We know,
can
yeah,
already
just
tell you now.
let's do it.
We're already gonna need that. Yeah.
If you don't mind, Natasha, I just wanted to throw it.
So it'll be real super quick. So I started something called Dad Cipher Edutainment, and really what it was I'm a father of 4. I was going through a divorce, and I wanted to maintain, contact and that sort of thing. And so hip hop was the language that I connected with my kids. I've always been a hip hop head, always told them about it and that sort of thing. But what I found is it was a way for us to build our social emotional learning. And it helped me through challenges with fatherhood. It helped me to help them to navigate what was going on with being, a young person. And so what I started, Dad Cipher Edutainment, is really the blending of fatherhood, hip hop, and education. And basically what I use is therapeutic writing. I look at hip hop lyrics. How do we, use the lyrics as a template in many cases to help students to infuse their stories into it. And so it's about teaching students to realize that the script that's been handed to them, they don't have to do it. And so in many cases, it's really infused a lot of narrative therapy using hip hop to empower kids to realize, and dads, that they have the power to rewrite their own narrative. So I'll put in the comments, like I said, Dad Cipher Edutainment. I got a website, but like I said, what you all are doing with professional development, I'm all for it. And I'm actually doing some pro bono stuff here in Atlanta with Towers High School, and I'm going to be using that to help at risk. Well, they say at risk, but I say at promise youth. So yeah, so I'll put that in there. But thank you all so much. But like I said, I've just been enjoying because Brother Wayne just told me about what was going on. So I just found out about this. So I was just like, yo, let me just get on and hear what fellow, hip hop heads are talking about. And Manny and Wayne and I are also part of Hip Hop Ed too, where we talk about these sort of issues. So I'll put all of that information into the comment. So thank you again for the space.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get this over to Prism and also put in, if you all know, because I know all the hip hop ed people, they're friends and colleagues, but I know they're changing platforms. So if you can put that info in there so people can follow that as well. So thank you. Prism, go ahead.
Peace. Yeah. I had to sneak away for a minute, but you guys have been making some great points, great conversation, great discussions, similar to those that Tasha, Manny, and I, have had before, amongst others. But the whole part of what we were doing with Chosen and why we called it Chosen Networks is to actually create an international network like this, where we could start connecting with like minds around the world. I had the privilege to attend the hip hop education retreat that happened a couple of weeks ago on the same days at Howard University. So I couldn't be in both places at the same time. But I was privileged to be able to be that fly on the wall and hear how people are talking about the culture and the education going forward. And there are many different perspectives to look at from hip hop, but three of them that come up frequently are the pioneers' perspective, those who created it, those like myself who were born into it, so we see it from a little bit different perspective, and then those from outside of the early days of the Bronx that have been studying it and getting the pieces and bits of stories and sort of creating the curriculum on that. And part of the reason why that's happened is because hip hop was too young to speak for itself all this time. So other people that had these PhDs and these titles had to be able to try to explain it the best way they could to the outside community. But now with hip hop, those that were born into it, like myself, are now in our 40s and 50s. We are old enough to speak and present on our own behalf. And again, the approach is just like if you take a Cherokee tribe and you bring an indigenous specialist from the Cherokees, you have them talk about the culture, the virtues and the principles and the stories and the lessons and the benefits and the meanings. This is how we've approached it for the past 30 years. Born into the culture, teaching it as a culture that has benefits and virtues, not just peace, love, unity, and fun, but respect and loyalty and freedom and creative control and sampling and open-mindedness and self-reliance and self-awareness. All of these are virtues and benefits that come when we teach it from the cultural perspective. This way we can understand it not just as a form of music or a billion-dollar industry, but a people that were born in a society with a lack of resources that had to be resourceful, to the point that my uncles and aunts, they had instruments, right? They played the trumpets and keyboards and stuff. But by the time I was born, most of the buildings were destroyed. We all lived in one-bedroom apartments. We couldn't play instruments. They couldn't afford to get instruments for us. And even if they did, the apartments were too small. The neighbors would complain. So we were a musical people, a tribal people left with no instruments. So we had to find a way. And that turntable became the source for it. So it was born out of a necessity of this culture that had music in its soul that already existed, but still needed a way to express it. And that's where the music was born, from that culture. And then the industry, the music industry, cherry-picked from the music to decide that it was going to promote the gang culture aspects instead of the hip-hop culture aspects. So a big part of what we did when I shared it with a couple of PhDs is highlight the difference between street culture, Black culture, gang culture, and hip hop culture as the culmination of those things, but independent of those things as well. And I was invited to create a platform where we teach the teachers, because the PhDs that I spoke to decided that a lot of that was being forgotten when it's being spoken about in schools today. So for me to be invited to the Hip Hop Educated Retreat and not only be able to hear the steps that are being taken progressively when hip hop is only 50 years old, I remind them what I remind you: we are ahead of the curve. It's not an almost extinct culture that's forgotten about hundreds of years later where we're trying to correct it. We're correcting it now in its first 50 years. I don't think any other culture in the world has done that in its first 50 years. So even though sometimes it might feel like the rest of the world is behind and they don't know what they're talking about, it's only 50 years old and we're correcting it already. So thanks to people like you and networks like this, Hip Hop Education Center and Hip Hop Congress are also talking about forming a similar platform for a hip hop speakers bureau type of thing. These are the kind of things I want to connect us on, so we can build and support each other and network and add and keep growing this convergence of groups. So thank you for all that you do. You're not alone. And thank you for making me feel like I'm not alone and there are other people like this out there. Peace.
I love this group. You might notice, thank you, Prism. Always, if I could, I would just have Prism in every space I'm in. And this is a reason why I need practitioners, but he's also a scholar. He's always working with young, or I would say young people. I call everyone young people now if they're just 1 year younger than me. Just a thing now. But doing the work through his culture, educating, advocating. And like you said, Dr. Adolph, with the each one teach one African proverb, don't know the origins or how long it's been used, but used in America by those that were enslaved because they were prohibited from both reading, but also passing along information. So each one teach one has its roots in that for hip hop, because people will say it's hip hop. No, It's way before us. And before I turn it over to Tony, and thank you all for this discussion, Tony will do a presentation. We can end it with more discussion. So his is the last. But if you notice, I'm like sitting here and crying. I got a delivery just as we were talking, and these are my aunt's pearls. And you're probably like, wow, Tasha's gonna wear pearls. Heck yes, I am, because they were my aunt. She just passed away. It's my, and before she died, literally 40 minutes, she says, because this is regarding education, she goes, if they tell you you can't, find another way. So it's kind of ironic. Get them right now as we're speaking.
Divine.
But it's kind of, yeah, she knew, right? But the reality of it, that's what we're being told. You can't do it. And these people in this space right now, and if you haven't met me, I cry all the time. It's a thing. I love feelings and I feel them. But these people, when I was a doctoral student, and even before then, because I started in the culture, and I'll end this in a minute, promise, Tony. I started studying hip hop in 2001. So now we're looking at, that's weird. I'm doing math, 20 years plus. I don't know how that time went by so fast. But when I first started doing it, I felt so alone. And I started in the culture. So I'm like in academia, like, well, that's hip hop. That's hip hop. Like, that's everything that we're doing. And being in a master's program, and some of you have heard this, and I got admitted to study hip hop, and they told me not to do it once I got there because it was not scholarly. And that's kind of aligning with like the 2000, I was in college around 2006, 2009-ish time. This was before those publications were hitting the press. So these people around us right now and the people in your networks, we all have kind of different but the same networks. So when we talk about our networks, we're going to have to get together and combine those. But they're the ones that got me through. People like Prism that were actually in the culture, that were giving me the language, not my professors, about the power of this type of teaching method and culture. The people from the culture gave me the language. Academia made me had to defend it. And I don't want it to be like that anymore. I want both of them working together. So that's kind of what we're doing. And so with that, I'm going to pass this along to Tony for our final presentation. Right after it, we open it back up for discussion, and that's how we'll end it. Jason should be joining us pretty soon. So absolutely, yeah, yeah, it is. So I'll send it to you, and then keep these thoughts, and we'll end it with a great discussion and how we can support each other. Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you, Tasha. And I'm realizing what a grave mistake I made by going last, because I don't want to go after all of you amazing people. And one of my biggest struggles is, what is it called? Imposter syndrome.
Oh my
or
gosh, you need to
whatever.
let that go, because you're awesome and you need
It's
to share it with
hard.
everyone. That's what I'm the biggest hype person. And I think that's a dangerous, and I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but I'm going to
Go for
pound
it.
this into everyone that says it here with my students. We are amazing scholars. We are amazing practitioners. And I think what we've been told from academia is to silence ourselves and we're supposed to be humble, and we're supposed to be quiet about it.
Mm.
But hip hop's going to tell us that no one's going to know about it or appreciate it. We have to tell the world. So I'm going to tell you this. I'm very honored for you to be a presenter. I'm honored to be a co-chair with you, and you should own that shit and have fun with this. And we are so proud to be here with you and have you go last.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that so much, to the fullest. So I'm going to take us on a bit of a different journey, talking about mental health and the timeliness of this, because I'm not sure how many of you all are familiar with Chino Excel and his work. I'm assuming people are, since because of who this group is. But just in case, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But so yeah, because like I mentioned earlier, my focus is mental health, and specifically suicide prevention. And so I think this is a very timely topic to talk about in combination with triumphs and failures in the 2020s. So I just wanted to throw out a self-care reminder because I love that Tasha cried in the discussion, and like we can do that. We can do whatever we can. But whenever we talk about heavy topics, especially suicide, we want to make sure everyone's taking care of themselves and doing what you need to do for yourself. And if you need support after the conference, please reach out for that as well. So in case anybody's not familiar, a lot of people, even hip hop fans, but I guess they're probably just more rap fans. When I mentioned Chino XL, they're like, "Oh, that's the guy that Tupac dissed on Hit 'Em Up, right?" And that's kind of all they know about him. But the rest of us know what a deep legacy he has in music and in the culture for his lyricism. A lot of people will say that Eminem took his style, um, or vice versa. I don't care about all that. I think their styles are similar and also unique. But just to give you an example of what his style is, his discography is very deep. And this is one of his songs. He says Chino is the lyrical messiah. And I mentioned I'm an MC, and that's my creative outlet. So I love looking at lyrics. They look like pictures to me. And so just to share a tiny speck of his brilliance, I think I don't know of any other MC that's used Mephistopheles uh, in a rhyme, metaphor, Mephistopheles. Um, but yeah, so he, incredible writer, incredible talent. And also, um, I had the privilege of getting to know him on a personal level through doing shows and being part of the local scene here in Albuquerque. Got to spend time with him, talk to him, get to know him on a deeper level a little bit. Some good friends of mine became good friends of his over the years, and so um, I have that other perspective as well. Um, Reason I'm bringing all this up is because he passed away earlier this year, and of course, hip hop culture. There was just a huge outpour of support, shock, sorrow, grief, all that that goes with it. Because he was young, he was 50 when he passed away, I believe, or very early 50s. So to me, that's still, that's young. And so as we were processing this shock and grief, a few months later, his family shared that he died by suicide. And they shared this in during Suicide Prevention Month intentionally because um, they wanted to create conversations and help try to prevent this in the future. Um, and that is that's the best way actually to prevent suicide is to talk about it. A lot of people think, oh, if you talk about it, you're going to create it or put that thought in people's heads or whatever. We hear that a lot when we do the suicide prevention work. But so they wanted to honor his legacy by saying, let's talk about it instead of stigmatizing it. And so I use these three images because it's also interesting, and this ties into what Manny was talking about earlier with how, and just what people were talking about, how, the media, journalists, whoever, um, how we talk about things and how we report things. For example, um, on the left, that's just very factual based, straightforward. Um, Family reveals rapper died of suicide. The middle is a little more genuine, a little more, emotional, kind of getting at the family's love for him. And then, the right just feels more like clickbait to me. They don't say what it is. It's shocking cause of death. You need to click on it to see what the big shock was. Um, and so that right one, it really adds to the stigma around suicide, and just creates, creates that drama narrative. So yeah, so I wanted to bring this conversation to the forefront, to the conference, to be able to engage in some of that dialogue that Chino's family was hopefully going for, right? It's also important topic, because when you look at him, when you know who he was a big guy, strong guy, bodybuilder, looks fierce, acts fierce. So to think that he had such mental health challenges, to the point of suicide, it kind of crushes that machismo or that misogyny, that you know, toxic notion that masculinity is immune to certain things, or that, you know, mental health challenges or that suicide is somehow some kind of form of weakness or something. But one thing I wanted to mention, hopefully you can follow my line of thinking, because I'm kind of all over the place and I realized maybe my presentation is not going to make sense. Like, why is he going into all this stuff? But hopefully you follow me. So I just wanted to mention, like, one of the beautiful things about hip hop, I think, is that it's a space, always has been, where we can talk about topics that are otherwise taboo, right? And that we sometimes get in trouble for. We need to censor ourselves. But like Cypress Hill has been talking about legalizing weed since I was like a child, and that was like the most outrageous thing, and now it's like becoming legalized, right? Two Live Crew, not that I agree with or want to glorify anything, but they did some great things for freedom of speech, right? As we know. So we could talk, that's one of the great things, we could talk about taboo topics. But with that, it's kind of a slippery slope, because then we could get into stigmatizing things. We can get into, we can veer into hate speech and being negative and other things like that. And so we need to have that awareness about that. Similar, and so with that, you know, suicide is it's a topic that's pretty taboo in many communities still, many spaces, and yet hip hop is actually, suicide's been discussed openly in hip hop music. Like I said, I'm one of those people that's very music based, MC based, because that's my outlet. But you know, I think we're all familiar with all of these things up here. I mean, Biggie's had a track called Suicidal Thoughts. Other rappers have actually talked about suicide, contemplating it. And then on the flip side, we had Logic's single, which was titled The Suicide Hotline Phone Number, and performed on national TV to try to raise awareness about suicide prevention. So yeah, Scarface for sure. Yeah, we could go on and on. Like it's all over, right? Juice WRLD. I was trying to uh not crowd it, but have a nice variety of old school and newer school. But yeah, it's everywhere, right? Thanks for adding to the conversation in the chat. So what I want to go into now and just bring into the conversation is one of the trainings that I do, because I do a variety of suicide intervention trainings, suicide prevention trainings. So the ASSIST model, which is one of the trainings that I do, talks about warning signs versus invitations, because a lot of us, when we talk about suicide, we talk about warning signs, right? Like, oh, were the warning signs there? But I want to invite us to use the term invitations instead, because warning signs makes it feel like, oh, it's a big warning, it's a red flag. Now we need to do something, or send them out to treatment or something. It kind of sounds more intimidating. Whereas invitations, we could look at the quote unquote warning signs as invitations. They're inviting us to have a conversation with them, inviting us to offer support, inviting us to hopefully help them connect to their lifeline, their life side, right? So in looking at that, right, Chino Excel in his music and writing, like he gave us plenty of invitations, right? And we can break these are just from various songs, and this is a tiny little tip of the iceberg as far as invitations in his music. The first one on the top right, that's from the song Even If It Kills Me, which was the title of my presentation because I think it's fascinating. That's one of my favorite tracks of his. And in that song, he says, you know, even if it costs my life, I'll always write. And I've just always thought that was fascinating before, and I like to dissect lines like that. And then when he passed away, it came back again when I found out it was suicide, and came back again. But then this other quote on the left top, my God, I'll take my life right now if you would save my child. This song was from actually a more it had nothing to do with suicide or mental health or anything. It was about his daughter who had cancer, and he's praying for her to get better, and he's feeling the helplessness and hopelessness of not being able to help her. And so it's on the surface, it feels like this is not an invitation. This is not actually about suicide. But we also know that just talking about suicide, writing about suicide in any form could be a potential invitation to go to think about, you know, suicide in different terms. Other invitations might be more indirect, right? He says, while you cut school because you didn't feel too good, I cut school because my cuts ain't healed too good. He raps a lot about trauma, childhood trauma. As we all know, ACEs is a big buzzword now. But again, that's the invitation. We can talk about that, like, you know, tell me more. And we know too, sometimes art and expression can be a healthy outlet to talk, to release, to heal, to talk about things, to have discussion. And also it doesn't always mean we're completely past that. I think a lot of people took that for granted and assumed he's clear, you know, Chino is clearly very healthy now. He's past all this, he's overcome it, he's resilient, he's got this beautiful family, this beautiful career, he's this big, strong, built, healthy guy. So he's just talking about this, but I think this gives us the opportunity to step back and say anything could always be an invitation, no matter where somebody's at in life, no matter where they are going, what it appears. We need to always be looking for those invitations. I see some people are sharing in the chat like they lost some people to suicide and things like that. And a lot of times people will say like there was no warning signs, or it came without warning, or it was out of nowhere. Sometimes that could be true for some people, and from our perspectives we don't see those. But sometimes we just don't know what those invitations were, and looking back, maybe, you know, shyness was an invitation for me to check in on them, or different types of behavior, things like that. And I was going to say one more thing, but I lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah. And so, you know, with Chino Excel in particular, he had just, Rakim just released a new album earlier this year, and Chino Excel was on it, sounding great as ever. And so it was extra, and Chino was talking about releasing a new album. So it was extra, like, whoa, out of nowhere. And it's again, an opportunity for us to say, like, no one's ever in the clear, right? And especially as things evolve in this world. We've been talking about the new administration, all the things that Tasha mentioned. COVID was a global trauma that we're still trying to heal from. So we all are just in this space of like this could be any of us at any time. So it's really up to us to look out for those invitations, right? So with that, I wanted to mention some resources and talk about these a little bit, because the hotlines, the helplines, the text lines, those are beautiful. Don't get me wrong, I love those. And it's not enough to just share those, right? Like, I think Logic had beautiful intention, and not everyone's going to call a hotline or text a hotline. Who are we going to talk to? We do these surveys whenever we do these trainings all the time. And it's like 95% of people say they're going to tell their friend, they're going to tell somebody that they trust. They're not going to go to the hotline. They're not going to go to a mental health professional. They're going to talk to their relative, their mom, their sister. So what that means is we need to take initiative to be ready, able, and willing to talk about suicide and to support someone in a meaningful way, right? Because how we respond initially, that's going to set the precedent. That's going to be a huge tell, especially depending on our relationship with the person. For example, if it's our child and we're a parent and they mention suicide, if our response is shock, that's going to close the communication channel pretty instaantly. So the other thing is, again, with the new administration, the funding that's going to get cut, things that are coming down the pipeline, it's already difficult to access mental health resources. It's already difficult to navigate the system. It's already barriers at every turn. And even then, mental health professionals, a lot of times, we don't know if they get it. We don't know if they're safe people. Sadly, I see people with clinical certifications, who don't apply the tools and who are not trauma informed and who say they're trauma informed or try to be trauma informed, whatever. But in practice, that's not the case. So I feel personally that it's on us to take care of ourselves, take care of each other, right? We don't all need to be therapists, and these trainings, the trainings that are mentioned here, they don't prepare you to be a therapist or to, do that deep work, but they do prepare us to offer that initial support, that initial intervention, help somebody through that, and then help to navigate them toward getting the ongoing support that is needed. So like some of these that are mentioned here, right? Assist is a 2-day suicide intervention training. Safe Talk is like the condensed tiny little 4-hour version of that. QPR is kind of like CPR, but for suicide, and that's even shorter. That could be virtual or in person. And then mental health first aid is a full day, and not just suicide, but just how to support someone through any mental health challenge. So I do these trainings as part of my full-time job. I'm also always down to figure out getting these trainings to any community or group who needs them, and just figuring out what that looks like, and making it happen. Like I said, we need to make it happen on our own. So in closing, just some final thoughts, like we need to take away some takeaways is that, reframe how we talk about suicide, where, how, and why we talk about suicide, looking out for those invitations. I hate to use the word capitalizing, but capitalizing, for lack of a better word, on teachable moments, right? When there's a discussion comes up, we can use that to provide education, information, resources, etc. And then thinking about post-vention, how do we support families, communities after somebody dies by suicide? Then, as I mentioned, like taking initiative ourselves, self-education, and taking it a step above sharing those lifelines, sharing those numbers, but actually being the person that's able to provide support and making sure that we're adequately ready, able, and willing to support someone and talk about suicide. And that we need to care for ourselves. We got us. We can't depend on the system, if you will, the powers that be. So, and lastly, the next kind of phase that I'm looking toward is creating our own resources. These trainings I mentioned, they're great, they're evidence-based, they're curriculum, blah, blah, blah. And how do we adapt or create resources for our communities, for the young people we work with, the At Promise youth that we work with, specific to Native communities, specific to hip hop groups, things like that. So I'm gonna end it on that note, and we can, if there's any questions or comments, we could open it up to discussion.
Do you know, I had a nickname as a child. It was Tasha 2 Cents because I had something to say about everything.
Sounds like
but
a
no.
great MC name.
Oh, that's the worst. When I go to like hip hop things, professional drill, and they're like, Tasha, you want to like rap real quick? And I was like, it's a, now that you said that, I can't even talk. But I think one of the triumphs before we get to have Jason join us in this conversation, he is now, bless your soul, hopefully done with most of his final exams. But I would say a triumph for, I would say the 2010s, 2020s. And one of the few instances where academia can help out here is providing those tools from psychology, social work, sociology, et cetera, to inform this programming or how we're using hip hop to kind of focus on like helping the whole person, right? Or like mental health. So we went from kind of it being a stigma, which again is a like societal issue that transcends borders, right? That's not unique to hip hop culture. But kind of learning from that. I think we're doing a better job now of learning from each other, seeing what's effective, how we can join both the culture we love along with these tools to help people. Because hip hop, it is a culture, but I'm like, what cultures are really able to do it all? They're not, right? There's no one culture that's like, we have all the answers and we know how to fix everything. Like that's not, and I think sometimes people look at us as if we have to come in there and solve everything. But in reality, it's joining together our culture and our love along with these tools to help people. So thank you for kind of sharing some of that. And then I'll Jason, after we kind of see if anyone, let's let Jason introduce himself real quick, and then we'll just open it up for everything. We talked about everything today, so go ahead.
Okay. That's like hard to follow. I mean, I will just say that I think like everybody here, I've lost people to suicide, and it's always like hindsight is always 2020, but there are moments when you're like going through it with that person and you know that one of my friends, I just knew that it was going to happen, definitely, and it was horrible, and yeah, it just didn't seem like the system was there to help him. It didn't seem like he had a support system, and he was also an addict, and so like it was almost like inevitable in some ways. And then I'm from Battle Cats, Minnesota breaking crew. It was my first breaking crew, and Idea is a Battle Cat. Was a Battle Cat, and he passed away quite a few years ago now. But that was really difficult too, because you see it all the time in the music. Like he was a rapper, if you didn't know, and you'd see it all the time in the music. Like it was always there, but we always kind of saw it as a way that he was like letting it out. And so, of course, it went deeper than that. But my name is Jason, or B-Boy Jason, and I'm currently in Pittsburgh. I am an instructor at Slippery Rock University. I teach dance studies. That's my PhD, is in dance studies, breaking in particular. And yeah, I'm just here to contribute to the discussion and just be part of the collective.
All right. So what I'll do, and thank you and welcome, is I'm going to open it up. So anything you want to talk about, let's start with kind of what's your main takeaway? This is so teachery to do. Like, what's your main takeaway? Where do we go from here? But the reality is there's a purpose behind this. It's bringing us together. It's helping us educate each other, and also sharing out resources and creating a system of support. So kind of, I would love to hear your thoughts. What did you take from, final, but so teachery. What's another way to do that? Let's what can I say? Hip hop, that sounds so much cooler and actually what I want to say. We have any MCs? Yes, go ahead.
What were the hardest bars that were dropped today?
There you go. That works.
What was
Outro.
the quotables?
That's why we do the wrap up in the global conference, which is so corny, but it's so hilarious. Best blow ups. I'm like, let me think. I'm like, from the beginning, I love this group because the discussion, right? I feel just this being around other people from the culture that do research and work and serve in this culture and community. We're very open and friendly. And Tony, you were talking about imposter syndrome earlier. I feel that when I go to other conferences. But I also feel that when I'm in these spaces with people like you all, my friends, I consider you family, I leave from it saying, oh, I need to think about that. And, from sustainability to impact, to gathering more research and data, to really continuously making a repetitive, habitual thing, to when we design curriculum, programming, when we're authoring books, y'all in here, holy camoli, with the intention of like bettering the culture and bettering the people we're working with or serving, right? So constantly having that understanding, just as Dr. Adolph said earlier, hip hop was born, in an area that was not embraced by institutions, right? So it created its own space. It brought in indigenous practices, things that people could be proud of and together. So I think for my main takeaways is kind of hearing that from you all, hearing that you're ready for the fight. And so I'll let you go, Tony, and anyone else wants to say anything.
Yeah, similar to what you were saying, preparing for the future, what's ahead, but also, feeling like we're not alone. But one of the things that really stood out to me was, I think Reyes said it earlier. I forget exactly when, but I wrote it down because he said, if we don't keep teaching, people are going to create their own narratives. And I think that's one of the things that ties into what everybody shared today and what everybody's talking about. That we need to keep teaching and we need to keep talking about it. And when I was younger, adults always kind of treated hip hop as like a phase or a fad, or like you're gonna grow up one day and then you're not gonna rap anymore and you're not gonna dress like this or be like this or whatever. And I'm like, I can't imagine that. So sometimes it feels like I'm not allowed to do this as a grown up or as a mature person or something like that. And now here we are, these, super intelligent, scholarly, academic, badass people that are just like super hip hop and like, yes, this is valid, this is real, this is beautiful. So I do appreciate that, love that. Big takeaway. Yeah, and I could go on forever. I could talk for another hour about some of the things that I jotted down as big takeaways and some thoughts that I've had throughout the day, but I'll pass it for now because I want to allow space for everyone else.
So I agree with the idea of not being alone was a big takeaway, because I gotta be honest, I've lost jobs because I'm the only one that will speak up, and then I'm called the target, and then they try to figure out a way to get me out because they don't want me there trying to make things better. This is why I'm like, I hate to say, I'm like honestly thinking about not being back in the school system. I'm being serious, like just doing this work outside, maybe doing some after school work, but like every place I go to, I feel like I'm micromanaged. I'm not, they say I have the freedom and we don't have a curriculum, you can do what you want, but that never happens. And then I always get, it's always my fault because no one else wants to speak up, but I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for the youth that need it. I'm doing it for them who deserve that opportunity to see what real classroom community is like. They hate that. They hate the idea that I care, that I want to make it about managing the classroom management. It's not individual management. You called it classroom management. So we work together. They don't like that. I don't know. It's like, I really did appreciate having everyone here and talking about how we're not alone in this. I just feel nervous to know what to do now, like, because like I know I could like go to certain people and say this or that, but like when I go back to my communities and talk, I'm the only one. So, yeah. I don't know if anyone has something advice, tips about that, because it's like, it's upsetting me because I love what I do. I love teaching, and I feel like I'm starting to lose it a little bit because I feel like I know the kids are appreciating what I do, but all the time the administration wants me out every time.
You, you know, I'll just say this. I've been teaching, and this is my 19th year doing it. And I would say, you know, whenever you are doing something revolutionary, I mean, this is, you know, part of the course and that sort of thing. It doesn't make it any easier. But one of the things that I would say that I had to go in with is when I think of myself as an educator, I think of myself as a person just sowing the seeds. And now I can't help how it grows, and that sort of thing. And sometimes you're in places that may just be bad ground. You know, it may be some ground that you have to till and that sort of thing. But the thing is, if you don't continue to plant, then good things can't grow. So I would just say, you know, that's one thing to think about. And then also too, also think of continue to go to nourishing places like this conference, like Hip Hop Ed, but also figure out ways to see if it's a way to, you know, even if we can all come in virtually in some of the classrooms, to see if you can have like that as a support theme. Because you know the thing is like this, the work is great, but the workers are few, and it's just one of those things. And it's tough because in our efforts to want to help, sometimes we want to help so bad that we become fixated on like, hey, I gotta give this kid my blueprint and all of that kind of stuff, when really in actuality our only job is just to disseminate the information, and it's going to be up to them and that sort of thing. But I hear you when you say, you know, it's not an easy task, but I would just say just continue to remember what you're doing this thing for. And remember that teaching does not have to just be limited to those four walls.
That's right.
So even if that means you have to be creative in other spaces, do it there too. But don't just limit yourself to just those four walls, because like hip hop, it could be in the park. Hip hop can be, in the studio. It can be in the club. So find different spaces where you can get the thing where you can have a space where something is nourishing you, because you are a vessel that's pouring out. But sometimes us as vessels, we need to make sure we get in spaces that's pouring into us. So that's just my take on it. But I hear you, bro.
I'm just jump in, Andrew. Don't forget also that the impact you're making isn't always felt. Like, you don't always feel it directly. That someone you've inspired, or some of the work that we're doing, I think we could all echo this. That we don't always get someone doesn't hand it to us and say, look, see what you did, like the impact that was made. I'll just give you one example. They didn't have to do this. I just got an email a couple of days ago. I had on Hip Hop Can Save America. I had a brother named Rainey Antoine Jr. He's a professor of hip hop at Loyola. We talked about one of the degree programs, Loyola University. And he had PR. So it's nice to have PR. Wouldn't all the educators in the room nice to have PR? Well, they have PR. Anyway, so the PR people set up the interview, and I did the interview. It was great. I had a good time talking with them. We're going to follow up, talk about some other things. It was great. And like this a few weeks ago. And then I just got an email the other day from the PR people. And they said, thank you for doing this. 2 students just committed to Loyola because of that interview. Like, because of that interview. And it was like, your work is impactful. And I was like, okay, like that's like people changing their life. Now, again, this is not me. This is his program. I was really happy that I was able to give him a platform for it. And, not a lot of people do this in hip hop, that